Hey guys. Tonight we begin with the oddly enchanting world of 1950s America. That moment in history when jingles, plastic, and corporate optimism fused into something so powerful it reshaped the holiday season across the planet. Picture department store Santas multiplying like cheerful clones, refrigerators twinkling with tinsel, and marketers discovering that nothing sells quite as well as nostalgia wrapped in bright lights. It is the decade when Christmas stopped being a quiet fireside ritual and started becoming an unstoppable cultural engine. One that hummed, sparkled, and occasionally terrified anyone who disliked peppermint. So before you get too cozy, take a second to gently tap that new hype button YouTube just added. It really does help little guys like me push through the algorithm. And be sure to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now, get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You arrive in 1950s America, as though stepping through a doorway someone forgot to close behind a cloud of peppermint-scented optimism. The air hums with possibility, the kind that crackles around new appliances and national ambition. You hear the buzz of neon signs advertising everything from televisions to canned cranberry sauce, each glowing like a promise that life can be perfected if you just add enough sparkle. Streets gleam with chrome and concrete, and every window display seems determined to convince you that happiness is something that can be purchased in monthly installments. Even the sky feels brighter, as though the sun has entered into an enthusiastic partnership with a detergent company. You walk past rows of suburban houses perched neatly along curving streets, each home looking like it was designed by someone who thought symmetry was a patriotic duty. Families move about in a choreography of cheerful routine. Children pedal shiny bicycles while wearing matching scarves. Neighbors wave for no reason other than because their mood requires it. Everywhere you look, you see evidence of a country freshly convinced that progress is a straight line, and everyone is marching together toward a future made entirely of chrome, convenience, and televised laughter. Christmas lingers here all year in subtle ways. Stores quietly stock decorations months before anyone admits it. A radio hums a jingle that suspiciously resembles a familiar carol, only with more enthusiasm and product placement. You sense the holiday stirring beneath the surface like a dormant machine preparing for activation. The slightest hint of cold air has families reaching for storage boxes labeled with handwriting that looks confident, even when the contents inside are not. The season is becoming less of a date on the calendar and more of a national project. You pass a department store where employees arrange elaborate holiday scenes, even though the calendar still insists it is early autumn. Penguins sculpted from plastic smile with uncanny sincerity beside glittering snow made from finely shredded cellulose. A mechanical Santa nods at you with the patient confidence of a man who knows he will soon oversee an empire of receipts and ribbon. Inside the store, clerks discuss inventory numbers as though reciting scripture, predicting which toys will turn peaceful living rooms into competitive battlegrounds. You overhear someone claim that this year will be bigger than the last, which was bigger than the one before that, a pattern that seems dangerously exponential. On the street, loudspeakers hanging from lampposts begin testing their holiday playlist. A familiar melody plays, but something about it feels polished to a shine, as if the notes have been buffed by committees until they radiate wholesomeness. You feel the holiday spirit creeping toward you, not slowly, but with the confident stride of a businessman who already made the sale. This is not ancient tradition. This is engineered cheer, bright and calculated and overwhelmingly effective. You find yourself in a living room where a family gathers around a television, the glowing box that has become the new hearth of the American home. The program features a cheerful host explaining the upcoming holiday specials, complete with smiling performers, artificial snow, and a tone so warm you suspect the studio lights are partially responsible. The entire family watches closely, as though learning the proper seasonal behavior from a televised instructor. Even the dog seems invested. You realize that the holiday is no longer something people simply celebrate. It is something they study. Walking outside again, you see Christmas lights strung along rooftops in patterns so precise you suspect a neighborhood committee was involved. Even the trees appear to lean toward conformity, each decorated with identical ornaments sold in packs of 24. A woman adjusts a wreath for the third time, ensuring that it hangs at the correct patriotic angle. Across the street, a man arranges luminarias along the walkway, with a focus usually reserved for surgical procedures. You can feel the rising tide of seasonal energy as households prepare to outshine one another in displays of coordinated joy. The commercial world gathers momentum. Flyers appear in mailboxes, promising early deals on toys that will become the obsession of children everywhere. Radio hosts share updates on which store has the best price for decorations shaped like cartoon reindeer. Corporate newsletters announce new strategies for holiday promotion, as if the entire economy has agreed to move in lockstep toward the inevitable December crescendo. You sense the machinery turning, slow at first, but steady and unstoppable. In the midst of all this, you become aware of an undercurrent, a subtle shift in how the holiday is perceived. Christmas is evolving. It is no longer just a day of quiet reflection or simple gatherings around fireplaces. It is becoming something grander and louder, a spectacle shaped by industry, imagination, and a national hunger for unity wrapped in glowing lights. You can feel the transformation unfolding in real time, humming under your feet like the engine of a train that has just begun to move. You stand in the glowing heart of a decade that believes everything is possible, including the reinvention of ancient traditions. And as the lights brighten, the radios sing, and the first hints of tinsel glitter in store windows, you realize you are witnessing the birth of a holiday machine that will soon extend far beyond this place, reshaping the world one cheerful melody at a time. You move through the polished corridors of a mid-century advertising office where everything smells faintly of ink, ambition, and whatever aftershave claims to make a man irresistible in 3 easy steps. Desks line the room like battlements, each occupied by someone tapping a pencil with enough enthusiasm to power a small generator. You watch them sift through ideas with the seriousness of surgeons, except instead of saving lives, they are attempting something far more delicate. They want to monetize joy. The holiday season sits on their conference table like an unclaimed treasure chest, and these people intend to pry it open with slogans and seasonal charm. You hover as a meeting begins. Executives gather around a long table polished to a shine that suggests it has never known a crumb of anything. A man in a crisp shirt stands, chalk in hand, and circles the word Christmas as if preparing to summon something ancient. His voice rises with the excitement of someone discovering that sentiment is not just a feeling but a renewable resource. The room leans in. You feel the collective spark of realization when someone suggests that cheer can be standardized, wrapped, and broadcast through every medium available. It is as if they have found a new continent, one made entirely of holly and predictable emotional responses. You drift to another corner where a small team tests jingles on a piano that has seen both brilliance and questionable melodies. The composer taps a key, humming a tune that is part traditional carol, part irresistible advertisement. You hear the melody loop again and again, each repetition more polished, more infectious, more capable of burrowing into the national consciousness. Someone murmurs that families will be singing it in their kitchens by December. Someone else says it needs more bells. You realize the bells are not decoration. They are strategy. You glance at a storyboard taped to the wall. It shows a perfect family gathered around a glowing tree, each face illuminated with a level of contentment that only appears when the camera crew is present. The script suggests they are united by a single product, displayed prominently enough to be almost sacred. You watch a copywriter soften the mother's smile with one stroke and sharpen the placement of the brand with another. The message is clear. Happiness can be choreographed, and it sells well. In another meeting, marketers debate the emotional power of snow. They discuss snowfall as if it is a colleague with exceptional reliability. One man insists that snowflakes in commercials have to fall at a precise rate to evoke nostalgia without overshadowing the merchandise. You feel slightly impressed and slightly alarmed. These people have measured the speed of sentiment. A woman with impeccable posture presents a chart showing the proven impact of color palettes on seasonal mood. She explains how red signals warmth, excitement, and appetite, which is why every product suddenly turns crimson when December approaches. Green, she says, conveys comfort and tradition, so it becomes the silent backdrop for everything from soup labels to cigarette packs. You watch as they decide which feelings belong in which hues, painting the emotional landscape of the nation with careful precision. By midday, the office hums with ideas so thick you could bottle them and sell them as limited edition inspiration. People discuss how nostalgia works on children, how pressure works on parents, and how desire works on both. They talk about assembling holiday campaigns that will appear in every home, every store, every radio broadcast. You understand that they are not merely advertising products. They are constructing rituals. You stand near a window and watch an executive rehearse a pitch about the universal holiday heartstring. He says the phrase with pride. Convinced it belongs in textbooks, his colleagues nod solemnly as though he has uncovered a fundamental truth. They speak of shaping memories, of being part of traditions families will believe they created themselves. It becomes obvious that these marketers are not just selling, they are scripting the season, crafting emotional cues that will guide millions through their celebrations. As the day winds down, the energy does not. People refill coffee cups, sharpen pencils, and hum jingles that have become part of their bloodstream. They treat the holiday not as a date but as a marketable ecosystem. They are inventing a version of Christmas that glows brighter, sounds louder, and feels warmer than anything you remember from old stories. And you realize that once this machine starts turning, it will never stop. In that humming office, amid sketches, slogans, and the relentless cheer of musical drafts, you witness the exact moment when holiday sentiment becomes a product. Not because anyone forced it, but because a roomful of bright, caffeinated minds realized they could take the feeling of December and sell it back to the world, one perfectly crafted jingle at a time. You move through the newborn suburbs of 1950s America, where every house looks like it was designed from the same instruction manual, only with slightly different enthusiasm. Streets curve in confident loops, as though city planners wanted to ensure no one ever got lost, only gently confused. The lawns are trimmed with a precision that suggests either neighborhood pride or the lingering fear that someone might report uneven grass to an authority. Rows of pastel homes stretch outward, tidy and almost smug, each one wearing a fresh coat of paint and a quiet air of possibility. It feels like you have stepped into a world under construction, where optimism has become a building material as common as plywood. You watch moving trucks rumble through the neighborhood, delivering furniture, dreams, and boxes labeled with instructions like fragile or kitchen maybe. Families emerge, blinking into the sunlight, adjusting to this new landscape of garages and privacy hedges. Everywhere you look, people behave as though establishing a perfect life is not only achievable, but expected, as long as they follow the handbook and keep the walkway swept. The scent of fresh asphalt floats in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of casseroles, as though the whole place is being seasoned for use. As autumn fades, the suburbs begin their transformation. Homeowners ease ladders out of garages like ceremonial instruments. Boxes of decorations are carried into yards with the seriousness of a military deployment. You see lights tested, bulbs inspected, and extension cords stretched across driveways in patterns that resemble battlefield strategy diagrams. The first house to fully decorate becomes a landmark, the unofficial signal that the competitive season has begun. Other families respond with increasing determination, adding lights to gutters, shrubs, fences, and any stationary object willing to participate. You wander past a house where a man squints at a bundle of tangled lights as though staring down a personal betrayal. His family watches from the porch, offering supportive commentary that is not helpful but definitely loud. Eventually, he conquers the knot, triumphantly raising the string of bulbs like a festive trophy before climbing onto the roof with the determination of someone who has decided beauty is worth a mild risk of falling. Across the street, another family adds glowing reindeer to their lawn, positioning them with scientific precision so they appear noble rather than confused. Children race between houses, announcing which decorations sparkle the brightest, as though training to become future judges in some grand suburban pageant. They treat each new display as a marvel, pointing out inflatable snowmen, flashing stars, and mechanical candy canes that wave with the eerie cheerfulness of robots designed to smile forever. You watch them run from yard to yard, their footsteps soft on the fresh grass, their excitement spreading faster than the decorations themselves. As night falls, the lights come alive. The neighborhood glows with a warm, pulsing brightness that reflects off car windshields and picture windows. You walk beneath the glow of thousands of bulbs arranged in patterns so intricate they could guide lost travelers. The houses no longer compete quietly. They declare their seasonal allegiance boldly, each one determined to outshine the others without admitting that is exactly what they are doing. Families stand in their driveways admiring the spectacle they created, hands on hips, sipping hot chocolate as though monitoring an art installation. You hear conversations drifting through the evening air. Someone claims their lights use less electricity this year, thanks to a new wiring technique. Though this is immediately challenged by a neighbor who insists they invented that technique first. Another person discusses their plan to add synchronized music next season, which prompts gasps and the subtle tightening of competitive smiles. A friendly rivalry takes root, the kind that begins with laughter and ends with someone owning a rooftop Santa taller than their chimney. Inside the homes, preparations continue. You see living rooms where garland winds around, stair rails and mantels shine with polished decorations. Families watch television specials that teach them what their holiday is supposed to look like, even though their real lives already resemble the scenes on screen. Outside, the lights reflect in the windows, doubling the brightness and giving the impression that each house is glowing from within and without. You step back and watch the entire suburb illuminate the night, a constellation of human effort and cheerful ambition. The glow stretches across rooftops like a seasonal tide, rising higher every year. You sense that this is more than decoration. It is a declaration, a collective promise that joy can be manufactured with enough bulbs and extension cords. In these suburbs, holiday spirit becomes a visible, measurable force, brighter than street lamps and far more persistent. As you walk away, the lights continue to shimmer, flicker, and twinkle with relentless optimism. The suburbs have found their identity in this seasonal ritual, a dance of brightness and friendly rivalry that binds neighbors together even as it challenges them to shine more brilliantly. And you realize that in this quiet competition, the modern holiday spectacle has found one of its most enthusiastic homes. You find yourself in a living room that looks freshly polished, as if someone scrubbed the walls out of sheer excitement for the future. A family stands around an empty tree stand, gazing at it the way pioneers once stared at unbroken land. They are preparing for something bold, something modern, something the neighbors will definitely talk about. Natural pine has served its purpose, but this is the 1950s, a decade infatuated with jet engines, space-age dreams, and anything that shines brighter than common sense. So the family unveils their new treasure, a vision in metallic exuberance, the aluminum Christmas tree. You watch as the father opens the box with ceremonial care, pulling out silvery branches wrapped in crisp paper that crinkles like applause. Each branch glitters even under ordinary lamps, catching the light in sharp glints that suggest equal parts holiday cheer and mild hazard. The mother gasps softly, not because the tree is beautiful, but because it looks exactly like the advertisement promised it would. The children stare at the pieces, unsure whether they are supposed to decorate it or salute it. The dog tilts its head, suspicious of this steel-colored forest creature that smells like nothing in nature. As the family assembles the tree, the room fills with an almost electric anticipation. Branch after branch slides into place, each one a silver feather of futuristic ambition. The final shape emerges not as a tree, exactly, but as something tree-adjacent, a shimmering monument to the belief that progress can improve even the evergreen. You watch their eyes widen as the last branch is adjusted, standing proudly at an angle that suggests innovation rather than wobble. Someone turns on the color wheel, that rotating disc of tinted light designed to make the aluminum glow with shifting shades of red, green, and blue. The machine hums to life, casting the tree through a spectrum of seasonal moods. Suddenly, the entire living room resembles a nightclub designed by a very enthusiastic elf. The tree cycles from warm crimson to cool aqua, then into a shade of purple that no forest has ever produced. The family stands entranced, as though witnessing a miracle engineered in a factory. You notice that ornaments behave differently on this creation. Instead of blending with soft needles, they reflect boldly, doubling their shine and confidence. Glass baubles act like tiny mirrors, capturing slivers of the spinning color wheel and sending them darting across the walls. A few ornaments fail to hang gracefully on the metallic branches and are quickly relocated to more cooperative spots. The father mutters that this is the price of embracing the future. Progress requires improvisation. Outside, neighbors walk by and do slow double takes through the window. Their faces reveal a mixture of fascination, confusion, and the faintest prick of competitive energy. One woman pauses, hands on hips, calculating whether her own living room might benefit from such an audacious display. A man leans closer, squinting at the chrome spectacle as though expecting it to make a sound. The dog across the street barks once, clearly unsettled by the existence of a tree that gleams like an aircraft part. Back inside, the family admires their work with the satisfaction of early adopters. They discuss how the tree will never shed needles, never dry out, and never require a trip to the edge of town to pick the perfect specimen. The mother points out that this tree will last for years, perhaps even decades, a promise that makes the father nod proudly while quietly wondering where they will store the box. The children circle the tree in cautious loops, mesmerized and slightly intimidated by its shimmering presence. As the evening settles in, the tree becomes the centerpiece of the home, glowing with a confidence that natural pine could never achieve. It radiates ambition, the kind that insists the future must be as shiny as possible. You watch the lights shift once more across its branches, transforming the room into a kaleidoscope of possibility. The family settles in to admire the show, sipping cocoa that now feels almost too traditional for their gleaming masterpiece. In this moment, you understand why the aluminum tree sweeps through American homes with such intensity. It is not simply decoration. It is proof that even ancient rituals can be redesigned to reflect a nation's belief that tomorrow will always be better, brighter, and more metallic. The tree stands proudly, humming with borrowed light, a seasonal promise forged in steel and wrapped in color. You step through the glass doors of a 1950s department store and immediately feel as though you have wandered into a parallel universe built from glitter, optimism, and a budget no reasonable accountant approved. The warm air hits you with the scent of pine, perfume, and freshly printed catalogs, all mingling into a fragrance that seems scientifically engineered to loosen wallets. Music drifts from hidden speakers, a cheerful melody repeated so frequently it begins to sound like the national anthem of holiday shopping. Everywhere you look, employees move with determined politeness, smoothing ribbons, adjusting displays, and silently praying the mechanical elk in the corner does not malfunction during peak hours again. You stroll past glass cases filled with ornaments gleaming under carefully arranged spotlights. Each one sparkles as though auditioning for a larger tree than any home could realistically accommodate. Behind you, a pair of children press their faces to a window display where animatronic reindeer blink with mechanical sincerity, their eyelids clicking softly in a rhythm that is both charming and unnervingly precise. The children wave, convinced the reindeer are truly acknowledging them, and for a moment you almost believe it too. This store runs on illusions so polished you forget they are illusions at all. Farther in, you encounter a winter landscape crafted from cotton batting and silver confetti. Tiny houses glow with lights that flicker in an imitation of life, and a miniature train circles the village with unwavering loyalty to its track. Shoppers gather around the display, heads tilted, the way people admire art that quietly suggests they should also purchase several items nearby. A sales associate stands ready to answer questions about how one might recreate such magic at home, conveniently glossing over the fact that it took an entire team of decorators and at least 2 engineers to get the train to stay on the track during humidity changes. You wander into the toy department, which radiates an energy midway between joyous celebration and controlled riot. Shelves tower with dolls, model planes, puzzles, and board games promising to unite families while secretly sowing rivalry. A demonstration table features a robot that walks in a stiff little march, powered by gears that sound determined to avoid breakdowns until after Christmas morning. Parents hover nearby, whispering calculations about price, durability, and whether the toy will produce enough delight to justify the inevitable noise. In the center of the store, the throne awaits. Santa sits upon it with dignified effort, his beard a perfect cloud, his suit crimson enough to make the surrounding decorations feel underdressed. Children line up in a winding queue that resembles a pilgrimage, each clutching a handwritten list decorated with crayon illustrations and strong opinions. You watch as Santa listens intently, nods with seasoned wisdom, and poses for photographs that will later appear in frames shaped like snowflakes. The camera flashes reflect off his boots, creating little bursts of light that add to the atmosphere of myth-making. The clothing section transforms itself into something theatrical. Mannequins pose in winter attire with expressions set to mild holiday wonder. Sequined sweaters shine under the spotlights as though competing with the ornaments nearby, and scarves drape elegantly across displays that invite customers to imagine themselves stepping out of a glamorous seasonal advertisement. Mirrors reflect the scene in endless repetition, making the entire department feel like a frozen moment in a musical number waiting for someone to start singing. You follow the crowd to the escalator, where garlands twist along the rails and lights glow beneath each step. Riding upward feels like an ascent into another realm, one where every floor promises a new spectacle. At the top, the household goods section sparkles with cookware arranged like ceremonial objects, each boasting that it can help create a holiday feast, so perfect it might prompt applause. Salespeople glide between aisles with the confidence of performers backstage, prepared to present a demonstration at the slightest curious glance. Throughout the store, speakers announce limited-time offers in tones that balance urgency and warmth. Shoppers drift wherever the voice guides them, arms filling with boxes wrapped in festive patterns and secured with ribbons that seem designed to frustrate anyone attempting to open them. The atmosphere vibrates with a shared sense of mission. People are not merely purchasing objects, they are constructing a vision of holiday joy this store has carefully storyboarded for them. By the time you reach the exit, the glowing displays have woven themselves into your senses. The blinking reindeer, the miniature village, the shimmering sweaters, and the tirelessly smiling Santa all blend into a single impression. The store has become not just a place of commerce, but a kingdom built from imagination and electricity. As you step back into the cool air outside, you find yourself half expecting snow to fall on cue, because in this world of curated wonder, even the weather feels like part of the show. You follow Santa through the 1950s as he quietly, almost politely, shifts from mythic gift giver to a corporate representative with a workload that would overwhelm most mortals. You first spot him seated in a modest photo booth in a small-town store, his beard a little lopsided, his boots worn from years of chimney travel. Children whisper requests with the trust that only innocence can supply. He listens kindly, nods thoughtfully, and gives each child a moment of pure magic. For a brief second, he still belongs to folklore, a figure who lives somewhere beyond accounting ledgers and marketing plans. But the world around him is changing. As you move through the holiday season, you see businesses noticing something about this gentleman in red. Whenever Santa appears, Crowds gather. Smiles widen. Parents loosen their grip on their shopping lists. Entire aisles grow livelier, as though his presence generates commerce simply by existing. Executives begin circling him with the cautious awe of people studying a rare creature they hope to train. They take notes. They whisper theories. They imagine possibilities. Soon you witness Santa's first promotional photoshoot. He sits beneath a towering artificial tree, surrounded by carefully placed products that he is encouraged to admire. The photographer instructs him to look jolly with a particular brand of toy, then slightly more jolly with a certain appliance, and especially jolly with a seasonal beverage positioned just close enough to be unmistakable. Santa complies because Santa has always been agreeable, and the photographers clap as though they have unlocked a new form of alchemy. When the prints develop, executives beam. They see something powerful in the way Santa's presence softens the edges of consumerism. Not long after, Santa receives invitations to appear in advertisements. At first they are simple. A friendly image on a magazine cover, a cheerful nod toward a product inside a catalog. But soon the requests multiply, becoming a stack of offers thicker than a chimney log. Companies want him to endorse everything from chocolates to vacuum cleaners, promising that his involvement will elevate any item into a must-have piece of seasonal joy. You watch as his signature red suit becomes a fixture in boardrooms where people discuss sales figures with faces lit by holiday greed and fluorescent lighting. Santa travels to television studios where producers greet him with a mixture of reverence and logistical panic. They outfit him with microphones that tangle in his beard and rehearse lines that sound suspiciously like slogans. He reads them slowly, stumbling occasionally on phrases like modern efficiency and a gift the whole family will appreciate. The directors encourage him to use more sparkle in his voice, which is difficult because he is still adjusting to the idea that his natural sparkle now belongs to a brand. The transformation accelerates. Department stores construct elaborate thrones for him, each polished to perfection and surrounded by decorations chosen to match the aesthetic of the sponsoring company. Children still climb into his lap, but now their view includes a tasteful sign reminding parents of seasonal deals. Santa smiles kindly, though a glimmer of confusion crosses his eyes whenever a manager adjusts the placement of his mittens to ensure better product visibility in photographs. Sometimes you see him backstage removing his hat and wiping his brow, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks assigned to him. The costume remains the same, the legend remains unchanged, yet the responsibilities expand each year. He attends parades, ribbon cuttings, press events, and festive luncheons, where he is expected to inspire cheer while subtly encouraging consumer loyalty. He never complains, though you catch him sinking into a chair with a sigh that suggests even magical figures feel the weight of modern expectations. Still, he adapts. His laugh grows louder, his gestures more polished, his presence more deliberate. He learns how to pose beside merchandise without overshadowing it, how to address crowds with warmth while guiding them towards specific aisles, and how to keep the illusion alive even while surrounded by flashing cameras. You sense that he understands his new role, not as a departure from tradition, but as a strange extension of it. If his purpose has always been to bring joy, perhaps this is simply joy delivered through a different channel. By December's end, you watch Santa ride atop a glittering float, sponsored by a company that produces household appliances. He waves to the crowd below, his image glowing on nearby billboards where he endorses products with legendary enthusiasm. Children cheer because they still see magic. Adults cheer because they feel nostalgia. Corporations cheer because sales numbers rise like freshly baked bread. In the soft glow of twinkling lights and advancing commerce, you realize that Santa has crossed a threshold. He has become both symbol and salesman, myth and marketing strategy, guardian of holiday wonder, and ambassador of seasonal spending. And though he never updated his resume, the world has rewritten his job description for him, one cheerful advertisement at a time. You sit in a living room where the television, that glowing oracle of the 1950s, has become the unquestioned center of domestic gravity. Families gather around it with an anticipation once reserved for comet sightings or presidential announcements. Tonight, though, the excitement is dedicated entirely to a holiday special, a program crafted with warm lighting, cheerful scripts, and enough sentiment to power the national grid. The children settle onto the rug, the adults claim the furniture, and the dog circles twice before resigning itself to a spot where it can monitor crumbs. Everyone waits as the screen flickers, hums, and finally blooms into colorless but undeniable magic. The host appears, smiling with the confidence of someone who knows their job is to tell America exactly how the holiday should feel. Behind them, a set designed to resemble a cozy cabin gleams under studio lights, which cast an intensity no fireplace has ever matched. You watch the scene unfold with practiced sincerity. Actors deliver lines about love, family, and the miracle of seasonal cooperation, each phrase polished until it glides smoothly across the room. Even the jokes are carefully measured, gentle enough to avoid offending anyone, but clever enough to earn an appreciative chuckle from viewers who believe themselves difficult to impress. Commercial breaks arrive like cheerful interruptions. A voice announces products with such enthusiasm, you momentarily consider purchasing items you did not know existed 5 minutes ago. A cartoon snowman dances across the screen to promote a cereal that has decided it is essential to holiday mornings. A refrigerator glows with cinematic glamour, the narrator promising it will preserve not only leftovers, but also the very essence of domestic harmony. When the program resumes, the family on screen continues their heartwarming journey as though nothing unusual has happened, and everyone in the room accepts this transition without question. You flip through channels and realize every network is producing its own version of holiday perfection. Some offer musical extravaganzas featuring choirs arranged in geometrically pleasing formations. Others present heartfelt dramas where characters discover the true meaning of the season with remarkable speed, and usually after a strategically timed snowfall. Animated specials introduce figures who are instantly iconic, their character designs destined to live on in lunchboxes and future rerun schedules. You sense the networks competing not just for ratings, but for the chance to define the holiday itself. As December progresses, television becomes the seasonal tutor of the nation. It teaches viewers how to decorate, how to cook, how to harmonize during carols, and how to resolve emotional conflicts in under 30 minutes. Parents begin quoting lines from specials as though they are reliable sources of wisdom. Children mimic dances performed by actors wearing sweaters suspiciously free of lint. You watch as televised storytelling seeps into real life, shaping expectations of what a perfect holiday should look like. Behind the scenes, producers labor over each episode with meticulous care. Writers polish scripts late into the night, debating whether an emotional climax needs 1 tear or 2. Directors adjust camera angles until the light reflects off ornaments with exactly the right degree of twinkle. Studio technicians sprinkle artificial snow that drifts gracefully for the audience, but clings aggressively to clothing between takes. Even the canned laughter is selected with precision, ensuring no joke is left unsupported. You understand that these specials are not merely entertainment. They are engineered experiences. Reruns quickly become a crucial part of the ritual. Families watch them each year with the reverence usually reserved for heirlooms. Children memorize lines. Adults feel an unexpected warmth when familiar melodies begin. The repetition builds a sense of continuity, connecting the present to the past with the reliability of a scheduled broadcast. The television network realizes they have not just created content, they have created tradition. One evening, you sit with a family as a beloved special begins again, its opening notes triggering an almost ceremonial silence. The parents lean forward, smiling at scenes they have witnessed dozens of times. The children giggle in anticipation of moments they know by heart. The glow of the screen reflects in their eyes, merging memory with present experience. It is not just nostalgia, it is an anchor, grounding them in a world that seems to spin faster each year. You step back and observe the phenomenon unfolding across the country. Homes of every shape and size echo with the same familiar dialogue, the same holiday melodies, the same gentle reassurance that everything is cheerful, resolvable, and beautifully lit. Television has succeeded in turning the holiday into a shared national narrative, one broadcast replay by replay, until it becomes inseparable from the season itself. As the final credits roll and the screen fades to a soft glow, you realize you have witnessed the moment when holiday television becomes more than entertainment. It becomes memory, expectation, and the quiet certainty that next year, at exactly the same time, the same glow will fill the room again. You walk into a toy factory humming with the kind of ambition usually found in rocket launches and presidential campaigns. Conveyor belts glide past like disciplined parade lines, carrying pieces of plastic that will soon become objects of fierce childhood devotion. Workers move with efficient rhythm, assembling dolls, robots, and miniature cars with an energy that suggests they know exactly what is at stake. You sense the air tingling with new possibility, the kind that appears when an industry discovers it can shape desire with frightening accuracy. Something has awakened here, and it is not subtle. You drift toward a meeting room where executives gather around a chalkboard covered in diagrams that resemble treasure maps. They discuss Saturday morning cartoons with the reverence of scholars analyzing ancient texts. Someone points to a graph showing the correlation between screen time and frantic parental purchases, and the group murmurs in awe as if observing an undiscovered law of physics. They talk about how children trust cartoon characters more than their own older siblings, and how this trust can be gently nudged toward any toy that sparkles, speaks, or promises adventure. You realize they are not simply manufacturing products. They are designing cravings. Back on the factory floor, you watch workers assemble a new line of action figures, each one molded with exaggerated heroism. They wield tiny plastic accessories that will inevitably be lost under couches, yet for now gleam with the potential to become the center of entire imaginative universes. A supervisor inspects them with narrowed eyes, ensuring every character appears brave enough to inspire loyalty and just flawed enough to seem relatable. The molders adjust expressions until they capture the exact amount of charm required to convince a child that owning this toy is essential to their long-term happiness. In another corner, engineers test a mechanical robot that marches with a satisfying clatter, its gears clicking with confidence. It moves across a table at a pace that is not intimidating but assertive, the kind of pace that says, "I am worth 3 weeks of allowance." When it completes its journey, the engineers applaud, then begin brainstorming improvements that will make it even more irresistible. Perhaps glowing eyes, perhaps sound effects, perhaps a companion robot sold separately. You can practically hear the dollar signs forming. Nearby, you observe a team dedicated entirely to packaging design, sketching boxes that look like portals to alternate universes. They experiment with fonts that trigger excitement and colors that activate specific emotional responses in children who have not yet learned to regulate their enthusiasm. A designer mentions that the box must be sturdy enough to survive gift wrapping, yet easy enough for a child to tear open with dramatic flair. They nod thoughtfully, taking notes on the delicate balance between durability and unbridled joy. You follow a group heading to the recording studio, where voice actors test lines for upcoming commercials. A cheerful narrator practices delivering phrases like, "Collect them all," with such sincerity that you feel briefly tempted to start collecting anything within reach. Another actor provides the voice for a cartoon character who will appear between shows, gleefully endorsing the toy with a charisma that would make seasoned politicians jealous. The directors play back the audio, ensuring each syllable carries precisely the right amount of enthusiasm to embed itself in the minds of viewers still wearing pajamas. As Saturday morning approaches, executives gather in a dimly lit room to watch test episodes of the cartoons that will accompany their advertisements. They lean forward with mounting excitement as characters leap across the screen in bright colors, engaging in adventures that just so happen to feature the very toys currently swirling around the factory floor. You watch as they nod along, imagining living rooms filled with eager eyes and cereal bowls slowly tipping over in forgotten laps. This is entertainment with a mission. When the big day arrives, you slip into the homes of families across the country. Children sit cross-legged in front of televisions, entranced by animated worlds crafted with strategic delight. As commercials appear, their attention intensifies. You witness the moment their expressions shift from passive enjoyment to urgent need, a transformation so swift it could be documented by scientists. They turn to their parents with hopeful urgency. Lists are updated, requests are issued, negotiations begin. Back in the factory, orders spike. Supervisors scramble to increase production. Crates fill with toys destined for stores, shelves, and eventually the coveted spaces under trees. The industry pulses with momentum, powered by the simple understanding that if a toy dances across a television screen, children will follow with unwavering enthusiasm. You step away from the noise and realize you have witnessed a pivotal moment. The toy industry has awakened to the realization that it can shape dreams through animation, and it wastes no time putting this discovery into practice. You leave the factory behind, hearing the steady hum of machines crafting the next wave of desires, each one waiting for its turn to appear on Saturday mornings and ignite the imaginations of children everywhere. You said you find yourself standing in a test kitchen that looks more like a laboratory than a place where anything edible should be created. Stainless steel glints from every surface, clipboards hang beside ovens, and a group of food scientists huddle around a saucepan as if it contains state secrets. One of them lifts a ladle, inhales deeply, then nods with the gravity of someone approving a peace treaty. You inhale too, catching a swirl of cinnamon, nutmeg, sugar, and ambition. Here, Christmas is not just a feeling, it is a formula. You drift to a wooden table where marketers sit surrounded by half-eaten cookies, open notebooks, and cups of coffee that have been reheated too many times. They debate the exact color of a frosting swirl, arguing whether children respond better to a warm, golden hue or a festive red that suggests joy and minimal dental bills. One insists the cinnamon level should evoke nostalgia without reminding anyone of failed attempts at holiday baking. Another argues for adding marshmallows to everything because marshmallows, apparently, are the universal language of seasonal persuasion. Across the room, bakers test variations of gingerbread destined for supermarket shelves. They pipe icing with focused precision, creating little figures who seem to smile proudly despite their precarious future inside decorative tins. The air grows thick with spice and sugar, each scent layered with calculated familiarity. You watch as a tray of cookies is lifted from the oven, steam curling upward like a gentle invitation. A manager breaks one open, listens to the crisp snap, then declares it market ready, a phrase that functions here like a royal blessing. Nearby, a syrup developer stirs a pot with ceremonial seriousness. He drops in a cinnamon stick, then another, as if summoning a spirit. The mixture bubbles politely, filling the room with a warmth that borders on hypnotic. Later, this syrup will be bottled, labeled with cheerful fonts, and placed strategically near registers where shoppers are vulnerable to last-minute holiday impulses. The developer writes notes about viscosity, aroma, and potential cross-branding opportunities, then smiles with quiet satisfaction as if he has personally lassoed the essence of winter. You wander into an adjoining office where a team of executives studies a mood board decorated with photographs of snowflakes, mugs of cocoa, and families wearing matching pajamas. They discuss which emotional notes their holiday campaign must hit: comfort, nostalgia, togetherness, and a gentle reminder that their products pair beautifully with every major holiday tradition. Charts show how cinnamon influences purchasing trends, and someone excitedly circles the phrase seasonal nostalgia activation, a concept that sounds like it belongs in a psychological thriller, but is treated here as a normal marketing objective. In the corner, a radio jingle specialist tests melodies on a small keyboard. He hums phrases that slip easily into your mind, catchy enough to live rent-free for weeks. The lyrics emphasize warmth, generosity, and the unmistakable hint that happiness can indeed be purchased, preferably before the sale ends. He tries several variations until one tune makes the executives straighten in their chairs with wide smiles. It is the sound of victory wrapped in sugar. You move into another kitchen where chefs experiment with peppermint, Red and white swirls blur together on countertops as candy makers stretch molten sugar into glossy ribbons. They fold, twist, slice, and polish with a choreography that feels both ancient and aggressively modern. A supervisor tests the final product, declaring it refreshing enough to clear sinuses and festive enough to qualify as holiday spirit in edible form. The candy is then carried away for packaging, ready to be displayed in aisles where its cheerful colors can catch the eye of every tired shopper trying to avoid impulse buys. The deeper you explore, the clearer it becomes. Food companies have learned to bottle Christmas itself. They craft flavors that nudge memories awake, reminding people of childhood joy, family gatherings, and the soft glow of lights against frosted windows. The recipes are engineered with careful balance, not too sweet, not too bold, but familiar enough to whisper that this season will feel magical if you simply add one more item to your cart. You step back into the cool hallway, listening as workers laugh, ovens hiss, and cinnamon drifts through the air like a festive fog. These kitchens are not just creating treats, they are crafting tradition, nostalgia, and edible marketing disguised as comfort. You walk away slowly, feeling the warmth linger, realizing that here, in the heart of 1950s innovation, Christmas has become more than a celebration. It has become a flavor, and the world is already hungry for it. You step into a department store as large as a train station and twice as loud, a place where the air smells faintly of perfume samples, wool coats, and ambition. Crowds stream through the doors with the determination of explorers embarking on a dangerous expedition. Somewhere, a clerk rings up a sale with the triumphant flourish of a herald announcing victory. You drift among the shoppers as they glide into aisles, shimmering with tinsel, their faces glowing beneath fluorescent lights that pretend to be festive. It becomes clear that you have arrived at the moment when holiday shopping transforms from activity into ritual. A seasonal pilgrimage powered by hope, caffeine, and limited time offers. You move with the crowd as they sweep toward displays stacked high with gift sets, scarves, and small appliances that promise to improve lives in ways no one can quite articulate. Housewives compare prices with tactical precision, discussing the merits of electric mixers as if planning a military campaign. Children tug at sleeves, pointing at toys with rising urgency. Meanwhile, men try to appear confident while scanning signs for guidance, betrayed only by the quiet panic in their eyes. You sense the collective determination of people who believe that the perfect gift can create harmony, repair grudges, and impress in-laws who have never been impressed by anything. At the center of the store, a towering tree shimmers with metallic ornaments arranged by someone who clearly values symmetry more than sanity. Beneath it lies a fortress of wrapped boxes, purely decorative but capable of stirring envy in anyone who has ever received socks 3 years in a row. A voice crackles over the loudspeaker promoting a limited sale that expires alarmingly soon, and the crowd responds as if the announcement were divine revelation. Shoppers surge toward the escalators, gripping bags and hopes with equal intensity. You follow them into the lower level, where toy aisles resemble a cheerful battlefield. Dolls grin unnervingly from shelves. Soldiers stand at attention in perfect rows, and model trains loop around miniature landscapes with mechanical confidence. Parents crouch to decipher packaging, calculating which toys will inspire squeals of joy on Christmas morning and which will inspire silent judgment from relatives. Every choice feels momentous. In this fluorescent glow, the path to holiday harmony is paved with careful purchases and slightly stretched budgets. Further along, you find tables stacked with sweaters in every possible shade of festive ambition. Shoppers touch fabrics with thoughtful frowns, imagining each garment on a loved one. They analyze softness, warmth, and the likelihood that Aunt Margaret will declare her annual dissatisfaction. You listen as salespeople offer reassurance with the calm authority of seasoned diplomats. They suggest alternative sizes, additional accessories, and extended return policies designed to soothe anxieties that flourish only during this season. You wander toward a checkout line that snakes across the floor like a patient serpent. People wait with a strange serenity, bonded by the shared experience of having survived the aisles. They shift bags from hand to hand, humming along to the holiday music that loops overhead with relentless cheerfulness. Conversations break out between strangers about bargains found, items missed, and the universally accepted truth that this ritual is exhausting, necessary, and somehow delightful. You feel the weight of tradition forming itself in real time, as if everyone instinctively understands that this fusion of joy and commerce will soon become an annual obligation. Outside the store, the evening air is crisp, and the streets glow with decorations designed to lure even more shoppers. Window displays shimmer with scenes of winter wonderland ingenuity. Mannequins in festive attire gaze wistfully into the distance, perhaps contemplating their own lack of agency. Crowds spill onto the sidewalks carrying armfuls of packages wrapped in branded paper, each bundle a small victory in the quest to create a memorable holiday. As you move through the bustling streets, you hear car horns, laughter, and the soft rustle of tissue paper escaping from overstuffed bags. The entire city seems to pulse with the desire to acquire, decorate, and give. You realize that the nation has embraced shopping not simply as preparation for the holiday, but as an essential act that binds people together. It is a grand performance, equal parts celebration and endurance test, fueled by optimism, advertising, and the belief that generosity can be measured in receipts. You step back, watching lights flicker across store windows and crowds navigate the sidewalks with renewed purpose. The ritual has taken hold, shaping the season and engraving itself into the rhythms of American life. Shopping is no longer an errand. It is the centerpiece of celebration, and as you follow the flow of people disappearing into the glittering night, you understand that this new tradition is here to stay, woven into the fabric of the holiday with the same permanence as carols and evergreen trees. You enter a fluorescent-lit office on a December afternoon, the kind of place where paperwork multiplies faster than poinsettias, and everyone knows exactly how many days remain until their holiday vacation. Yet something feels different. Desks are draped in garland, staplers wear tiny hats, and someone has taped a cardboard snowman to the water cooler. You sense the atmosphere shifting from professional caution to seasonal mischief. This is the moment when the office holiday party becomes a cultural invention, and everyone pretends not to notice how unprepared they are for it. You watch employees decorate with the enthusiasm of people who have been waiting all year for a sanctioned break from seriousness. A secretary climbs on a chair to hang tinsel, wobbling slightly as co-workers offer advice rather than assistance. Someone starts a record player, filling the room with cheerful melodies that clash beautifully with the usual clacking of typewriters. A bowl of punch appears on a nearby table, bright red and ominously sweet. No one asks what is in it, because asking implies weakness. Soon the room fills with workers abandoning their desks, drifting toward the promise of free snacks and temporary freedom. You notice how quickly people shed their professional personas. The stern accountant laughs too loudly at a modest joke. The reserved clerk reveals an alarming talent for harmonizing with carols. The supervisor, normally so composed, adjusts a paper crown on his head with solemn dignity. The hierarchy does not disappear, but it becomes soft around the edges, like butter left too close to a warm stovetop. At the center of the room, a table groans under the weight of potluck dishes that span the entire spectrum of culinary courage. There are casseroles whose ingredients remain mysterious, cookies shaped like stars but leaning toward abstract interpretation, and a fruitcake that has likely been aging since the early months of the administration. People compliment each dish with exaggerated politeness, secretly judging texture, spice levels, and whether the cook washed their hands beforehand. As the punch begins to circulate, conversations loosen. Co-workers who normally communicate through memos engage in heartfelt discussions about holiday plans, family quirks, and distant dreams of uninterrupted sleep. You watch alliances form over shared frustrations about the broken copier, while minor office feuds dissolve in the glow of seasonal amnesty. Someone accidentally reveals a talent for storytelling, describing their childhood Christmas with such vivid detail that even the most cynical manager feels a nostalgic tug. the office manager announces a game, and the room erupts with the enthusiasm of people who have been waiting all year for the chance to win something other than respect. There is musical chairs, which quickly devolves into a competitive sport, and a gift exchange featuring presents ranging from thoughtful to suspiciously re-gifted. Someone unwraps a ceramic angel with one wing chipped off, and the room applauds as if they have received a priceless heirloom. It becomes clear that the true gift is witnessing adults pretend they do not mind bad presents. In the corner, two coworkers discuss workplace politics under the guise of discussing ornaments. They speak softly, their voices carrying the delicate rhythm of gossip wrapped in tinsel. You catch hints of admiration, annoyance, and the quiet thrill of saying things that would normally be reserved for private phone calls. The holiday party becomes a stage where truth tiptoes out, disguised as festivity. Later, the boss gives a short speech, thanking everyone for their hard work and attempting a joke that lands gently rather than gracefully. The room applauds with genuine warmth, moved more by the rare vulnerability than the humor itself. For a moment, everyone feels connected, part of a shared story woven from deadlines, laughter, and the hope that next year will be easier. As the evening winds down, people gather their coats and tins of half-eaten treats. The decorations flicker, casting soft shadows across desks that will soon return to their usual seriousness. You watch as coworkers exchange smiles that feel slightly more sincere than the ones traded during normal business hours. Something about the tinsel, the punch, or the collective willingness to suspend reality has created a temporary community that will linger quietly beneath the surface long after the party ends. You step back into the hallway and feel the shift as the office settles into a gentle afterglow, its workers carrying home stories of laughter, awkward moments, and unexpected camaraderie. The phenomenon has taken root. Christmas has entered the workplace, and the workplace, despite itself, has embraced it. You step into the quiet hum of a 1950s newsroom, where typewriters chatter like caffeinated insects, and the air smells faintly of ink, ambition, and someone's forgotten sandwich. Editors move with the brisk confidence of people who believe they are shaping civilization one page at a time. You sense a kind of reverence circling the room, the kind usually reserved for royalty or expensive crystal. This is the moment magazines discover they can manufacture an entire holiday in print, and no one seems remotely concerned about the consequences. You glide toward a long table where stacks of glossy photographs sit like offerings. A designer flips through them with practiced detachment. There are living rooms draped in ornaments that look hand-placed by angels with impeccable taste, tables set with more silverware than any mortal family could identify, and children dressed in outfits so crisp they appear incapable of bending their knees. The designer selects images that shimmer with aspirational charm, then slides them toward an editor who nods with solemn gravity. These pages, they decide, will teach America how Christmas should look. Nearby, a team of writers brainstorms headlines with the enthusiasm of poets crafting national scripture. They debate whether Christmas magic begins with a hyphen or whether the word festive can be legally applied to wallpaper. Every sentence is polished until it sparkles, promising readers a holiday filled with grace, harmony, and just enough new purchases to keep several industries thriving. You listen as they try out phrases like, transform your home into a winter wonderland and achieve effortless elegance. Each tagline carries the unspoken message that without guidance, the average citizen will accidentally celebrate Christmas incorrectly. You wander toward the fashion department, where stylists drape mannequins in outfits no one would wear to shovel snow, but everyone will suddenly feel obligated to buy. Cocktail dresses shimmer under bright lights. Sweaters are arranged with such strategic coziness that you momentarily believe a garment can fix a person's entire personality. A photographer snaps pictures while barking instructions to models who maintain serene expressions despite standing in front of a tree decorated with ornaments that cost more than their rent. These images will soon convince millions that glamour is an essential part of seasonal joy. In the kitchen studio, a food stylist arranges cookies with the precision of a jeweler. She adjusts the angle of each sprinkle, ensuring they fall in a pattern that suggests care without implying effort. A photographer leans in, capturing the moment where simplicity meets pure intimidation. One cookie cracks slightly, and the stylist gasps as if witnessing a historic blunder. She replaces it with a flawless duplicate from a tray that looks suspiciously untouched by human hands. You realize these cookies are not baked. They are summoned. Editors gather around layouts pinned to a wall, critiquing every detail. They move photos an inch to the left, alter colors to evoke a sense of Nordic sophistication, and debate whether a wreath looks more inviting when photographed at dawn or during artificially created twilight. Someone suggests adding a sidebar about crafting homemade ornaments, though the instructions require materials no household possesses unless it operates a small art studio. They celebrate the idea anyway, confident that readers will try, fail, and feel compelled to try again next year. As pages take shape, you understand the power emerging here. Magazines are not simply reflecting Christmas traditions. They are inventing them, refining them, elevating them into pristine tableau that few people can achieve, but everyone will attempt. They teach families what their trees, dinners, and wardrobes should look like, whispering that perfection is both possible and expected. The glossy pages become silent instructors, telling readers to aspire, improve, and maybe purchase a decorative pillow shaped like a reindeer. When the final proofs are approved, the presses roar to life. Ink spreads across paper in long mechanical breaths. Magazines stack up in towering piles, ready to travel across the nation like ambassadors of curated joy. You picture them arriving in mailboxes, being flipped through at kitchen tables, sparking hope, envy, and determined optimism. Households will study these pages with the same intensity usually reserved for sacred texts, planning their decorations, menus, and cookie shapes accordingly. You step back from the printing frenzy, watching as the dream Christmas takes physical form. The magazines gleam under warehouse lights, offering visions of a holiday polished to an impossible shine. Through these pages, expectations rise, traditions shift, and the season grows just a little more theatrical. You walk away knowing that somewhere, families are already preparing to pursue the Christmas they have been shown, even if it means rearranging their entire lives to match the pictures on the page. You step into a conference room high above the city, where a long table gleams under bright lights, and the coffee percolator in the corner works harder than most interns. Executives in crisp suits gather with the seriousness of generals preparing for an emotional campaign. Papers rustle, storyboards line the walls, and someone adjusts a model of a snow-covered street as if calibrating the weather itself. You sense the hum of ambition sharpening the air. This is where Christmas advertising learns to control the national heartbeat, and snow is about to become a mandatory ingredient for human connection. You take a seat near a stack of scripts bound with twine. The top page announces a simple directive: evoke warmth. Beneath it, someone has scribbled a note about ensuring snow enters the first scene before anyone speaks. An executive taps the page with a pen, explaining that viewers trust snowfall more than dialogue. Snow signals comfort, nostalgia, and the universal promise that life will briefly restrain itself from chaos. You watch the room nod, accepting this as undeniable scientific fact. A creative director stands and begins pitching a commercial about a lonely traveler returning home for the holiday. The traveler struggles through a snowstorm, illuminated by lights that glow like hopeful punctuation marks. When he finally reaches his family, they embrace with a level of harmony rarely seen outside advertisements and carefully orchestrated reunions. The executives sigh in unison, moved not by the reunion itself, but by the elegant placement of the company's logo in the final shot. You realize this is not storytelling, it is calibration. Another team presents an outline for a commercial featuring children building a snowman, while a parent watches from the front porch, sipping cocoa in a mug so picturesque it might have been sculpted by an angel. The snowman slowly takes shape, accumulating personality through scarves and buttons supplied by a conveniently nearby branded shopping bag. The parent smiles, demonstrating that the product fosters joy, togetherness, and tasteful accessorizing. A A producer suggests adding a gentle snowfall at the end to emphasize emotional closure. The room erupts in praise. You move closer to a pair of writers debating the emotional weight of different snow textures. Powdery snow signals innocence, while heavy flakes evoke cinematic drama. Slushy snow is forbidden because no human has ever formed a treasured memory in slush. They scribble notes about flurries, flake density, and the optimal moment for a character to glance upward as snow begins to fall. This upward glance, they insist, must convey awe, transformation, and mild surprise, even if the viewer has seen the same moment in 50 other commercials. In another corner, sound engineers test jingles designed to accompany these winter scenes. Bells chime delicately, underscored by a choir humming notes engineered to trigger warmth in the frontal cortex. They discuss which frequencies best activate nostalgia. Someone suggests adding a faint crackling sound reminiscent of a fireplace, remarking that any home can feel luxurious if you simply imply fire somewhere nearby. They test versions with varying levels of softness until the entire room feels one emotional degree cozier. The head of the network steps forward, holding a chart that tracks the relationship between snowfall and consumer engagement. Lines rise dramatically whenever snow appears in an advertisement, especially if paired with lighting that creates the illusion of hope reflecting off ice crystals. Executives lean in, awed by the clarity of the data. Snow, it turns out, is not weather. Snow is strategy. You observe casting auditions where actors must demonstrate their ability to look meaningfully at snow without speaking. One performer tilts their head with perfect sincerity. Another allows a single flake to land on their glove, a moment so tender the casting director immediately circles their name. It becomes clear that the entire advertising network has agreed on a sacred rule. Emotional truth is strongest when expressed through snowfall and a strategically timed smile. When the meeting adjourns, executives rise with the satisfaction of architects who have just drafted blueprints for national sentiment. They carry storyboards under their arms, scripts tucked neatly into folders, each document containing a carefully crafted winter world designed to make viewers believe that snow is essential to bonding, gift-giving, and overall human flourishing. You follow them through the hallway, listening as they discuss snowfall budgets, jingle approval timelines, and the profound importance of ensuring every commercial ends with a warm embrace illuminated by soft glowing light. You step outside the building into the real winter air. Snowflakes drift lazily around you, uncoordinated and imperfect. Unaware of their enormous advertising responsibilities, you take in the scene, knowing that somewhere in boardrooms across the country, executives are already shaping the next wave of holiday emotion, refining the scripts that will make the nation feel, remember, and purchase with the conviction that snow is more than frozen water. It is the emotional currency of the season. You step into a warm kitchen glowing with soft lamplight and the quiet hum of determination. A woman stands at the counter surrounded by mixing bowls, recipe cards, and an optimism that flickers like the pilot light of an overworked stove. She is the new holiday homemaker, a figure lifted from magazine covers and placed gently but firmly into real life, where nothing stays tidy for more than half a minute. You watch as she studies a glossy page, instructing her to create a Christmas that appears effortless, charming, and entirely achievable. As long as she possesses unlimited time, flawless technique, and the ability to bake 6 types of cookies while smiling serenely. She begins with good intentions. Flour dusts the air like festive snowfall. Cinnamon curls upward from a simmering pot, weaving itself into the fabric of the house. In the next room, children chase each other with the speed and volume of unregulated holiday excitement. Every few minutes, she pauses to restore calm, redirect energy, or rescue an ornament that has become an accidental casualty. Then she returns to her work, smoothing dough with the precision of someone hoping to impress the imaginary editor watching from the corner. You wander into the living room where decorations are mid-transformation. Garlands drape gracefully in some areas and suspiciously in others. A stack of tangled lights sits on the sofa, daring anyone to confront it. She approaches them with a deep breath, armed with the determination of a woman who has faced down PTA committees and uncooperative appliances. As she untangles the cords, she hums the holiday songs she heard on television specials, the ones that promise serenity while glossing over the part where the tinsel mysteriously migrates into the vacuum cleaner. Her husband enters, offering what he believes is supportive commentary. He holds a hammer, insists he has a plan for hanging the wreath, and immediately begins measuring in ways that suggest he is confident but not entirely accurate. She watches, balancing affection with the knowledge that his wreath-hanging method may require diplomatic intervention. You notice how she navigates the moment with gentle patience, redirecting the process just enough to prevent a hole in the plaster while allowing him to feel victorious. In the dining room, she arranges a table setting inspired by magazine spreads that feature linens untouched by spills and centerpieces assembled by professionals with access to exotic foliage. She recreates the scene using what she has, adjusting angles, fluffing bows, and quietly hiding a slightly dented candle holder behind a more photogenic one. The result is charming, though she worries whether it is charming enough. You sense the tension between her genuine desire to create joy and the creeping expectation that joy must resemble a staged photograph. Guests begin to arrive earlier than expected, carrying dishes wrapped in foil and stories wrapped in mild chaos. She greets them with warmth, brushing flour from her sleeve and ignoring the faint crackle of cookies baking half a minute too long. Children rush through the hallway, leaving footprints of sugar and excitement. Someone knocks over a bowl, someone else asks where the scissors are, and the dog chooses this moment to investigate the trash can. She handles each eruption with the grace of someone juggling flaming ornaments, smiling even as she moves swiftly to contain the fallout. Yet amid the bustle, you notice something quietly triumphant. Her guests settle into chairs, admiring the decorations and praising the aroma drifting from the kitchen. They marvel at her cookies, unaware of the earlier reshaping, rebaking, and strategic placement on the prettiest plate she owns. They compliment the tree, not noticing the 3 branches that required emergency ornament camouflage. The children laugh, adults relax, and the house fills with a warmth that no magazine could adequately capture. You realize she is crafting not perfection, but connection. The glitter, the recipes, the garlands, and the carefully arranged details may begin as obligations shaped by glossy expectations, but they transform into something real the moment people gather. She navigates the chaos with resilience, creativity, and a humor she rarely acknowledges out loud. By the time the evening settles into soft conversation and quiet comfort, she stands in the doorway, watching her family and friends with a tired but genuine smile. This is the new holiday homemaker, balancing aspiration and reality, guided by scenes she sees in magazines, yet grounded in the imperfect beauty of real life. And as you linger in the glow of the room, you understand how much of the holiday has been built on her unspoken labor, her steady hands, and her ability to turn chaos into celebration without anyone noticing the effort beneath the shine. You enter a factory lit by long rows of buzzing lamps, their glow reflecting off metal surfaces until everything seems wrapped in a faint industrial halo. The air carries the scent of warm plastic, varnish, and the distant promise of cinnamon that someone sprayed near the loading dock to inspire morale. Conveyor belts glide past you with steady determination, carrying small, glittering objects that sparkle with such enthusiasm, you suspect they have already accepted their destiny. This is where the season manufactures its icons, and the workers move with the quiet knowledge that what they create will soon inhabit millions of living rooms. You follow a belt laden with unfinished ornaments shaped like tiny spheres. They roll in organized lines toward a team of painters who wield brushes dipped in metallic colors so vibrant they could summon a crowd from 2 blocks away. Each worker moves quickly, adding stripes, stars, or delicate swirls perfected through repetition. The ornaments pass under heat lamps that cure the paint with the efficiency of miniature suns. When they emerge, They gleam with the confidence of objects convinced they are essential to holiday happiness. Nearby, a machine stamps out metal hooks with a rhythm that feels almost cheerful. Workers gather the hooks into bins, attaching them to ornaments with a motion so practiced it appears effortless. You watch each piece transformed from a simple sphere into a potential memory. It will soon hang on a branch beside handmade crafts, childhood relics, and the one ornament every family lovingly refers to as the strange one. The workers do not discuss this future, but you see it in their steady pace. Every gesture carries the quiet weight of tradition. You drift toward another line where glass ornaments are blown by hand. Skilled artisans sit at stations, turning molten bulbs with slow precision. You watch the glass expand, growing into fragile globes that shimmer with soft orange light before cooling into clarity. These ornaments feel alive, carrying warmth from their creation that lingers just long enough for you to sense the artistry behind them. Once cooled, they are dipped into trays of glitter that cling to the surface like frost embracing a window pane. A supervisor inspects each piece, rejecting any that deviate from the year's approved definition of beauty. Farther along, machines assemble whimsical figurines destined for mantels and tabletops. Plastic Santas march in perfect formation, their painted expressions eternally merry. Snowmen wobble slightly as they move down the line, their scarves fluttering in the factory breeze. Reindeer glide on small platforms, heads held high, appearing noble despite being molded 20 seconds earlier. Workers attach final touches with glue guns and careful fingertips, ensuring each figure radiates charm rather than existential confusion. You pause at a station where ornaments, shaped like stars, await packaging. Workers nestle them into boxes lined with soft dividers, ensuring they will survive journeys through warehouses, delivery trucks, and the unpredictable handling of overly excited holiday shoppers. Each box is sealed with a label featuring cheery fonts and the company logo arranged to look festive. The packaging itself seems eager, as though aware it will contribute to the growing ritual of opening decorations each year with reverence and mild wonder. From the upper walkway, you look down upon the entire operation. Conveyor belts weave through the factory like illuminated pathways. Machines whir, workers chat softly, and bins overflow with color. It feels like watching a river of holiday spirit flowing steadily toward its destination. These ornaments may be small, but the impact they will have is enormous. They will adorn trees across suburbs and small towns, appear in family photos, reflect laughter from visiting relatives, and endure in attics for decades until rediscovered with sentimental gasps. As the shift changes, workers remove gloves and stretch, leaving behind the gentle clatter of cooling machinery. You sense pride beneath their tired movements. Not loud or boastful, but grounded in the understanding that their labor shapes the season in ways few people ever consider. The ornaments they crafted will become part of stories they will never hear. They will spark joy in rooms they will never enter. They will hang from branches illuminated by lights that shimmer just enough to make each ornament look like magic itself. You follow the final conveyor belt to the loading dock, where crates are stacked like building blocks of anticipation. Trucks wait with open doors, their interiors ready to carry the season's icons across the country. As forklifts move the crates into place, you feel the transition begin. These objects shift from products to symbols, from merchandise to memory. You step back as the trucks rumble to life. Inside them, hundreds of thousands of ornaments sit quietly, unaware that soon they will twirl gently on trees, reflect the glow of living rooms, and become part of the ever-expanding tapestry of Christmas. You step into a radio studio warm with the glow of vacuum tubes and the soft hiss of equipment that never truly sleeps. The air carries a faint scent of dust, wool coats, and something sweet that might be hot cocoa or might simply be wishful thinking. Engineers lean over control boards covered in switches and dials that look capable of launching aircraft, though today they are used for something far more delicate. They are crafting December, or at least the way December will sound to millions of ears. In the recording booth, a crooner stands before a microphone shaped like a silver monument. His suit is pressed, His smile is effortless, and his voice, when he begins to sing, pours out like warm syrup drizzling over a cold morning. He serenades the season with lyrics about snow falling softly, hearts glowing warmly, and dreams gliding just beyond the windowsill. You sense his voice drifting through the glass, filling the space with a kind of enchantment that seems to wrap itself around every piece of equipment, as though claiming the studio for the month of December. You move closer as a quartet joins him, harmonizing with such gentle precision that even the microphones seem to lean in. Their voices braid together into a sound that feels like stepping into a warm room after walking through winter streets. The engineers listen with narrowed eyes and soft smiles, adjusting knobs to perfect the balance. A producer taps his pencil in time with the music, imagining the listeners who will hear this across the country while stringing lights, stirring cocoa, or driving home through frosted neighborhoods. Behind you, writers work at a small table, crafting scripts for holiday radio specials. They debate whether a story about two strangers meeting in a snowstorm is too sentimental or just sentimental enough. Someone suggests adding jingle bells at a key moment to elevate the emotional impact by at least 20%. Another writer insists on including a cheerful narrator who explains that the season is best understood through generosity, hope, and well-timed sponsorship announcements. The group nods, accepting that even heartfelt stories must make room for commercial realities. As the day continues, announcers step into the booth, delivering lines with the practiced warmth of people who are paid to sound like everyone's favorite neighbor. They introduce songs, share small holiday anecdotes, and gently nudge listeners toward the idea that the world feels kinder this time of year. A jingle plays, upbeat and sparkling, promoting a brand of hot chocolate that promises comfort in each cup. You hear sleigh bells layered beneath the melody, because in this decade, sleigh bells have become the universal shorthand for emotional sincerity. In another corner of the studio, musicians rehearse instrumental pieces meant to evoke scenes no one has actually witnessed, but everyone believes must exist. Streets glowing with calm snow, cabins filled with laughter, and fireplaces crackling with perfectly photogenic flames. A conductor waves his baton as if persuading the strings section to sigh more softly. Each note is chosen not for musical complexity, but for its ability to blend into the quiet moments of people's lives. You follow the sound engineer into a room filled with stacked tapes, each labeled with titles that promise comfort. These recordings will soon travel across the airwaves into kitchens, shops, cars, and bedrooms. They will set the rhythm of the season, guiding moods and memories with the confidence of a conductor leading an invisible orchestra. You imagine the songs floating through suburban homes, wrapping themselves around dinner tables where families talk about the day, or drifting through living rooms as parents finish wrapping presents after the children sleep. As evening settles over the studio, the crooner returns for another take, his voice growing richer with each run through the melody. Outside, the city darkens, and small clusters of people hurry through the cold with their collars pulled up and their spirits lifted by music playing from shop speakers. You hear strains of the same song echoing faintly from a distant radio. The studio's work is already seeping into the world. When the session ends, the producer gathers the tapes lovingly, as though holding fragile ornaments. He knows the power they carry. These songs will be woven into memories, binding themselves to the scent of pine, the crackle of wrapping paper, and the warmth of crowded living rooms. They will accompany heartbreak, laughter, reunion, and quiet reflection. They will become the soundtrack, not just of a season, but of countless Decembers across countless years. You walk out of the studio into the crisp night, hearing the final notes linger in your mind. The music drifts behind you, soft and warm, and you understand that radio has not merely embraced Christmas. It has amplified it, sending the season into the air itself, allowing anyone with a dial and a little imagination to share in its glow. You stand on a chilly curb in a small American town, the kind where storefronts display hand-painted signs, and every lamppost has been wrapped in garland as though competing for the title of Most Spirited Municipal Object. The crowd gathers early, bundled in coats, scarves, and an enthusiasm that suggests they believe they might witness history, or at least something with memorable confetti. Children bounce in place, gripping paper bags destined to collect candy thrown from floats with varying degrees of accuracy. You sense a familiar hum in the air, the kind that arrives when a community prepares to witness a spectacle that grows more ambitious every year. The first float rolls into view, pulled by a truck decorated with tinsel so thoroughly it resembles a festive armored vehicle. On the platform behind it stand local volunteers waving politely, surrounded by oversized cardboard candy canes that wobble each time the truck hits a pothole. The crowd applauds, not because the float is impressive, but because everyone understands that parades begin modestly to build anticipation. The real show is still coming. The floats that have been whispered about in diners and debated in barbershops as though they are military strategies. Next comes a marching band whose uniforms sparkle under the winter sun, though a few trumpet players appear more focused on staying upright than maintaining rhythm. Their song is spirited, slightly off-key, and completely perfect for the mood. You watch parents along the curb wiping tears from their eyes with mittened hands, convinced this performance will be remembered for generations. Behind the band marches a baton-twirling troupe whose members display a mastery of coordination that falters only when someone gets overly ambitious with a spin and momentarily disrupts the choreography. The audience cheers louder, because mishaps only make live entertainment feel more genuine. Then the tone shifts. A float turns the corner carrying an enormous papier-mâché snowman so tall it looks in danger of scraping the streetlights. The crowd gasps, then erupts into delighted approval. The creators of this float grin from their elevated perch, proud of their decision to exceed all reasonable limits. The snowman's hat tilts slightly, and a man on the float subtly holds it steady, preserving the illusion that everything is entirely intentional. This moment marks the beginning of the parade's transformation from charming tradition into full-scale arms race. You hear a rumble in the distance, followed by a burst of music amplified enough to rattle the pavement. Another float approaches, this one outfitted with spinning ornaments powered by a generator humming with questionable confidence. Performers dressed as elves wave energetically, nearly losing their balance each time the platform shifts. The float blasts artificial snow into the air, coating the spectators in a fine powder that is festive in spirit, but distinctly unseasonal in taste. The crowd screams with delight anyway. As the parade continues, you witness the evolution of ambition. Floats grow taller, brighter, and louder. One features a towering mechanical reindeer whose head moves independently, startling both pets and small children. Another displays a fully decorated tree rotating slowly on a platform, wires hidden beneath layers of garland. You marvel at the engineering required to prevent it from toppling. Behind it comes a float shaped like a giant present, its top opening periodically to reveal a chorus of singers who appear like seasonal jack-in-the-boxes, hitting their notes with commendable courage despite the cold. You glance at the crowd and see the effect of the escalating spectacle. People cheer louder, point more fervently, and begin discussing next year's possibilities with the certainty of seasoned analysts. You hear one man predict that soon floats will include live animals, while another speculates about pyrotechnics. A woman near you suggests that the parade committee has hired an engineer from the aerospace sector. No one laughs. It seems plausible. Finally, Santa arrives on the grand finale float, seated on a throne so large it requires its own support beams. The float glitters with lights that flash in synchronized patterns, forming shapes that may or may not be intentionally symbolic. Santa waves with majestic ease, his beard almost glowing beneath the bulbs. The crowd roars, thrilled by the culmination of a parade that has outdone itself yet again. As the last float passes, the crowd disperses slowly, buzzing with excitement and plans. Children recount their favorite moments with wild gestures. Adults debate which float should win the unofficial title of Best in Show. You step back, watching the empty street return to normal, though faint traces of confetti linger in gutters like colorful footprints of the spectacle. You realize these parades have become more than entertainment. They are annual declarations of holiday ambition, each year raising the standard of what a community can create with enough imagination, plywood, and daring. The floats grow larger because the season demands larger dreams, and the people gladly rise to meet them, one escalating masterpiece at a time. You enter a boardroom high above the city, where the windows stretch from floor to ceiling, and the carpet is so plush it feels like walking across a well-groomed cloud. A long, polished table gleams under the overhead lights, reflecting the anxious excitement of the executives who file in with folders, charts, and the faintest scent of peppermint lingering on their coats. They are here for a meeting that will shape the future of Christmas, not in the gentle, sentimental way poets describe, but in the meticulous, revenue-driven manner only corporations can fully envision. Today, they are deciding how to export holiday cheer to places that have never asked for it. You take a seat at the edge of the room as the presentation begins. A projector hums to life, casting a map of the world onto the far wall. The continents glow under the pointer of a confident executive who explains that Christmas has reached a tipping point. It is no longer merely a domestic triumph. It is a global opportunity. Around the table, heads nod with the solemn enthusiasm of people who can already hear the faint jingle of international profits. Charts appear showing rising interest in American culture abroad. Executives lean forward, tapping pens against their notepads as they examine data about emerging markets, seasonal adoption curves, and the surprising emotional power of red and green color combinations. Someone suggests that the universal appeal of joy makes Christmas a natural candidate for global expansion. Another notes that happiness pairs beautifully with purchasable goods. Everyone murmurs in agreement, relieved to discover such harmonious synergy. You watch as they brainstorm strategies with the intensity of architects designing a theme park. They discuss exporting holiday symbols that are considered charming, non-controversial, and easily reproducible. Candy canes, for example, require no translation. Santa, with his generous smile and adaptable mythology, is declared the ideal ambassador. Holiday music, particularly the kind featuring crooners who sound like warm fireplaces in human form, is designated the emotional glue that will bind global markets to the season. A woman from marketing unveils a series of proposed advertisements tailored for different regions. In one, Santa strolls through a sunlit beach town, waving cheerfully at families who decorate palm trees with the same festive zeal as snowy evergreens. In another, he rides a camel through a desert village, distributing gifts with the diplomatic grace of a man deeply committed to cross-cultural unity. The executives applaud these concepts as bold, relatable, and efficiently festive. You sense the room swelling with confidence that Christmas can thrive in any climate, provided the lighting is warm and the smiles sincere. Next, a team explains how to introduce holiday merchandise into foreign markets without overwhelming them. Start small, they advise. Sell ornaments in modest displays. Offer limited runs of seasonal pastries. Broadcast edited versions of American specials dubbed in local languages. Allow the cheer to drift in gradually, like a friendly neighbor stopping by with cookies. Soon, communities will begin adopting the season as their own, customizing it while purchasing a curated selection of the products displayed on the slides currently filling the room. Distribution experts join the conversation, describing logistical routes that will ensure the timely arrival of holiday goods across oceans and borders. They talk about warehouses in strategic locations, partnerships with shipping companies, and the necessity of guaranteeing that plastic reindeer arrive intact, even in tropical climates. You realize that behind every ornament and greeting card lies a lattice of global planning so intricate it resembles the world's most festive spiderweb. Then comes the moment that shifts the room's energy. An executive places a photo of a bustling foreign market on the table, explaining that local vendors have begun selling imitation American holiday products. Instead of concern, the room erupts in excitement. This, they declare, is proof of concept. If imitation has already begun, genuine corporate versions will thrive. They discuss licensing opportunities, co-branding initiatives, and partnerships capable of bringing authentic Christmas merchandise to these emerging markets, ensuring that the holiday remains both heartfelt and properly monetized. By the time the meeting concludes, the boardroom feels electrified. Executives leave with folders tucked under their arms, carrying strategies that will carry Christmas far beyond American borders. Their footfalls echo with the rhythm of confidence, as though they are marching toward a future where the season expands like a glowing, jingling constellation across the globe. You linger by the window as the lights dim. Outside, the city glitters with decorations that now seem almost modest compared to the visions you just witnessed. You imagine these lights replicated in distant countries, cities adorned with ornaments inspired by ideas born in this very room. The season will travel on ships, airplanes, radio waves, and advertisements, planting itself wherever it finds room to shine. And as you watch a snowflake drift softly past the glass, you understand that Christmas is no longer just a holiday. It is becoming an export, a global enterprise wrapped in ribbons and delivered with a cheerful smile, designed to bring joy and revenue in equal measure. You step onto a train platform shimmering beneath strings of colored bulbs that sway gently in the winter breeze. The loudspeakers announce arrivals with their usual crackle, but now the voice carries a hint of rehearsed warmth, as if instructed to sound slightly more festive. Conductors wear sprigs of holly pinned to their uniforms, some proudly, others with the air of people who lost a negotiation with the decorations committee. Passengers gather around benches wrapped in garland, holding suitcases decorated with temporary stickers that promise cheer even if the luggage itself has seen better days. You sense that Christmas has seeped into transit, claiming territory once reserved for pure practicality. When the train arrives, you step aboard and immediately inhale a bouquet of scents that should not coexist yet somehow do. Pine from the small artificial tree lashed bravely to the end of the car. Peppermint from the complimentary candies a conductor hands out with surprising solemnity. A faint trace of hot chocolate drifting from the dining car, carried by someone who has already spilled a little on their coat but refuses to let it dampen the holiday mood. You take your seat and feel the car rumble beneath you, its mechanical rhythm softened by the glow of paper snowflakes taped to every window. Around you, travelers settle in with the weary optimism of people embarking on seasonal quests. A woman carefully unwraps a tin of cookies meant for relatives, guarding it like a priceless artifact. A young man balances 3 gift bags on his lap, adjusting the tissue paper each time the train jolts. A family squeezes into a row, children pressing their noses to the decorated window, while parents strategize how to keep spirits high for the duration of the journey. The train moves forward, lights flickering softly, as though unsure whether they are supposed to illuminate travel or contribute to the ambiance. In the dining car, workers attempt to maintain professionalism while surrounded by decorations that transform their workspace into something between a cozy cabin and a mildly chaotic craft project. A wreath hangs above the counter at an angle that suggests someone installed it during a moving train and chose not to correct it afterward. Passengers gather to sip cocoa or coffee, their conversations layering into a tapestry of anticipation. Some discuss family reunions with fond excitement. Others quietly brace themselves for unpredictable obligations awaiting them at their destinations. The warmth of the car mixes with the soft clatter of dishes until the space feels suspended between cheer and commuting. You switch to a bus later that evening, stepping inside to find tinsel wrapped confidently around every metal railing. A strand of lights blinks from the ceiling with patterns that alternate between charming and mildly chaotic. The driver greets passengers with a jovial nod, though you suspect he has been listening to the same loop of holiday music for several hours and has developed an impressive tolerance. People shuffle into seats, brushing snow from coats and adjusting scarves. Someone in the back attempts to hum along with the music, misses the key entirely, and receives supportive smiles rather than judgment. As the bus rolls through town, you watch storefronts blur together in streaks of red, gold, and green. Children seated near the windows point at each decorated building with breathless enthusiasm, convinced that every glowing sign contains secret holiday magic. Adults gaze out with quieter expressions, their thoughts drifting between to-do lists and nostalgia. The bus interior rocks gently with each turn, causing the dangling ornaments near the windshield to sway in unison like a small chorus of patient cheerleaders. At a transfer station, travelers spill into a waiting area, transformed by someone with abundant creativity and limited budget. Paper chains loop across pillars, wreaths made from cotton and ribbon hang above timetable boards, and a cardboard fireplace sits in the corner, emitting no heat but considerable charm. People pause to admire the decor, their faces softening as though the simple effort momentarily disarms their holiday fatigue. A janitor sweeps the floor while wearing a hat with a pom-pom that bounces each time he pivots, adding an accidental flourish to his work. Back on the move, you notice how transit itself becomes a stage for communal ritual. Strangers exchange small smiles when someone's package topples. Others offer seats to parents juggling coats, children, and mysterious lumpy gifts. Conversations spark between people who would never speak on an ordinary day, united by shared destinations and the shared understanding that the season intensifies every emotion, even on a bus crawling through traffic. As your journey continues, you realize that Christmas in transit reveals something subtle yet telling. People carry their hopes, anxieties, and traditions with them, wrapped inside suitcases and tucked beneath winter layers. Companies deck their vehicles with decorations, not because it solves the challenges of travel, but because it softens them. Lights blink on overhead rails. Ornaments sway with the motion of the road. Music loops endlessly, giving the night a rhythm all its own. And as you watch passengers doze against frosted windows, their reflections softened by garland and blinking lights, you understand that in this season, even movement becomes celebration. The road itself becomes part of the holiday, carrying travelers toward reunions, obligations, and the warm glow waiting at the end of the journey. You step onto a film set disguised as a quaint, snowy village, though you quickly learn the snow is made of paper pulp. The icicles are rubber, and the warm glow from every window is produced by light bulbs burning hot enough to saute onions. Crew members hurry past, carrying props that look magical from a distance and vaguely concerning up close. A director shouts instructions through a megaphone with the fervor of someone who believes wholeheartedly in the emotional power of synchronized holiday cheer. You sense you have arrived at the moment when Hollywood discovers that Christmas is not just a season, it is a dependable myth-making machine. The actors gather near the artificial tree planted smack in the center of the set. They practice expressions of wonder, heartbreak, reconciliation, and the sudden realization that the true meaning of Christmas was inside them all along. One actor tests a scene in which he must pretend to be cold despite sweating under studio lamps that simulate winter by generating something closer to midsummer heat. Makeup artists rush into powder faces, adjust scarves, and rearrange hair into shapes the average human could never replicate without professional support. A group of screenwriters watches from behind a stack of scripts adorned with coffee rings. They whisper about plot beats, ensuring every moment follows the sacred structure required for holiday films. There must be a misunderstanding resolved by snowfall. There must be at least one heartfelt confession delivered beside a tree. There must be a moment when two characters who disliked each other earlier realize they are cosmically destined to share Cocoa forever. You can see the confidence in the writer's eyes as they discuss these patterns. They know what works. They know audiences crave reassurance disguised as narrative innovation. In another corner of the soundstage, technicians prepare a machine that will release gentle flurries onto the set. The machine coughs once, dramatically, and spews out a test burst that coats an unsuspecting production assistant. The assistant blinks, shrugs, and continues walking, shedding flakes like a confused snowman on a deadline. The crew cheers when the flakes fall properly, drifting down with cinematic grace rather than clumping into suspicious clusters. Snow, they insist, is the emotional punctuation of any good holiday film. You wander into a costume trailer where racks of knit sweaters, wool coats, and impossibly festive scarves hang in neat rows. A designer explains that the goal is to create clothing that makes viewers yearn for winter romance while ignoring the practical reality that none of these outfits would survive an actual blizzard. She holds up a scarf patterned with reindeer and tiny stars, describing how it symbolizes the character's emotional arc. You nod, impressed that fabric can apparently carry narrative weight. When filming begins, you watch scenes performed again and again until they shimmer with polished warmth. A couple strolls past shop windows glowing with manufactured charm. They exchange dialogue that feels spontaneous, but has been revised 14 times. The director interrupts occasionally to suggest a little more sparkle in the eyes or a softer smile, as if these qualities can be summoned at will. The actors comply with practiced grace, stepping fully into the myth they are constructing. Between takes, you hear producers discussing test audiences. They speak of tears shed at predictable moments, laughter erupting exactly on cue, and satisfaction ratings rising with every strategically placed ornament. They understand that holiday films thrive not on surprise, but on delivering the comfort of inevitability. Audiences want to know everything will work out, as long as the right people decorate the right tree at the right moment. As the day continues, cameras roll on scenes featuring family gatherings, gift exchanges, reconciliations, and one climactic moment involving a snowfall timed so perfectly it feels ordained. The director wipes away a tiny tear, claiming it is from dust, but knowing everyone witnessed the emotional impact of the take. Even the camera operator seems moved, though this may be due to standing too close to a vent releasing warm air disguised as a winter breeze. You watch the crew wrap up the set for the night, unplugging lights and sweeping away snow that will be replaced tomorrow without anyone questioning its authenticity. Actors slip into comfortable shoes. Writers debate whether the final scene should include a choir or simply a reflective instrumental. Producers check calendars to schedule promotional interviews that will assure audiences this film contains all the joy, growth, and seasonal magic they crave. You step outside into the real night air, crisp and unfiltered, and you realize Hollywood has tapped into something powerful. By crafting predictable myths dressed in glittering lights and gentle snowfall, the film industry has found a way to bottle reassurance. Each holiday movie becomes a spell repeated annually, promising love, redemption, and glowing windows that never fog with disappointment. And as you walk away from the soundstage, you understand why these films endure. They allow viewers to believe, even for 90 minutes, that the world becomes softer in December, that miracles are plausible, and that every falling snowflake carries meaning. Hollywood does not just tell stories. It manufactures belief, one perfectly timed snowfall at a time. You walk into a community hall filled with the warm shuffle of winter coats and the faint smell of peppermint donated by someone who clearly misunderstood the assignment. Volunteers bustle around long tables stacked with clipboards, envelopes, and donation bins wrapped in patterned paper, as though presenting bureaucracy as a form of decor. A woman with a clipboard greets you with such spirited enthusiasm that you briefly wonder if kindness is now considered a competitive sport. This is where you witness the transition of holiday generosity from spontaneous goodwill to something closer to a well-oiled machine. You watch as volunteers arrange toys into categories with the precision of museum curators. Dolls stand in neat rows, trucks line up like disciplined soldiers, and board games sit stacked in towers engineered to survive the evening rush. Workers check lists twice, not because they doubt their accuracy, but because they enjoy the ritual. The room hums with purpose. People feel the season in their bones, and they express it through labels, sorting systems, and the satisfying click of a correctly marked checkbox. In a corner, a group of fundraising strategists sit around a table covered in mock-ups of posters and pamphlets. They discuss which wording will inspire the most generosity without sounding too dramatic or too cheerful. One suggests a slogan featuring hope. Another argues for joy. Someone else insists the key is to highlight the phrase, "every child deserves." They weigh tones like jewelers inspecting gemstones, ensuring the message gleams just brightly enough to open wallets without overwhelming the intended sentiment. Nearby, a radio host practices lines for an upcoming charity broadcast. His voice shifts effortlessly between heartwarming sincerity and announcer-level crispness. He rehearses stories designed to tug at the public's heartstrings, pausing dramatically in all the places algorithms would later confirm were effective. Behind him, technicians prepare equipment for the big night, ready to broadcast generosity across the airwaves with all the gravitas of an international appeal. You wander toward a staging area where volunteers pack baskets filled with canned goods, blankets, and items that resemble comfort even when viewed through plastic wrap. Each basket is assembled with a sense of ceremony. Someone carefully tucks a holiday card into each one, even though the handwriting looks rushed and the ink smudges slightly. Another volunteer ties ribbons with knots that appear simple but hold with surprising strength. They move quickly, yet meaningfully, aware that each basket will become part of someone's holiday story. Corporate representatives arrive next, carrying oversized checks and wearing smiles practiced in boardrooms. They pose for photographs with volunteers, holding the checks at angles that display the logo just clearly enough to ensure recognition in local newspapers. After the photos, they mingle with the air of people who genuinely want to help but are also thinking about meetings scheduled later. Still, their contributions make a visible impact. Their companies have discovered that generosity plays well in both hearts and headlines. In another corner, children gather around tables, decorating cards for the elderly. Their drawings feature snowmen with uneven eyes, trees leaning heroically to one side, and stars shining so brightly they nearly escape the paper. Volunteers applaud every masterpiece, offering encouragement with a level of enthusiasm that suggests each artwork has the potential to alter the course of human history. The children beam, unaware that these cards will soon be delivered to nursing homes with the tender choreography of goodwill. As evening settles, you observe the launch of a holiday telethon. Phones ring with steady rhythm, volunteers answering with cheerful greetings that blend sincerity and practiced efficiency. Each donation is announced with applause, and the total climbs on a large board that glows brighter with each contribution. Occasionally, someone steps to the microphone to share a heartfelt story that silences the room and stirs something soft in the chest of every listener. It feels orchestrated, yes, but also undeniably human. Throughout the night, the campaign unfolds with the precision of a seasonal symphony. Coordinators track progress, volunteers refill coffee cups, and the local television crew captures moments sure to inspire even the most skeptical viewers. You realize that generosity, much like holiday decorations or seasonal jingles, has become a form of collective participation. People need reminders, prompts, and well-structured opportunities to contribute, and they respond. When the final tally is announced, the room erupts in tired but triumphant joy. Volunteers embrace, donors smile, the organizers breathe out in relief. The season has once again transformed goodwill into action through choreography, planning, and just enough spectacle to make it unforgettable. You step outside into the crisp night, hearing distant bells and the faint hum of traffic. The warmth from the hall lingers in your mind. You understand now that holiday giving is not simply an act of kindness. It is a tradition built on orchestration, cooperation, and the stubborn, hopeful belief that the world becomes softer when people choose to give. You take your seat on a hard wooden bench in a school auditorium that smells faintly of crayons, floor polish, and the combustible hope of parents who believe their child will be the standout star. The stage before you is framed by curtains that have seen decades of recitals, gently sagging under the weight of tradition and whatever glitter refuses to leave their fibers. Teachers hurry back and forth, adjusting props made of cardboard, construction paper, and optimism. They whisper instructions to one another with the urgency of generals preparing for battle. This is the school holiday pageant, where cotton snow drifts heroically under bright lights, and childhood performances quietly shape the nation's understanding of December. Children gather backstage in clusters, dressed in costumes that range from historically informed to creatively questionable. Some wear robes meant to evoke ancient winter tales but look suspiciously like repurposed bedsheets. Others don reindeer antlers made from pipe cleaners that wobble wildly whenever the wearer blinks. A small group of children dressed as snowflakes flap their arms in soft, chaotic synchronization. Their teacher kneels beside them, delivering a pep talk with the solemnity normally reserved for astronauts about to embark on a lunar mission. The first scene begins with the lights rising on a set carefully crafted from painted plywood. A painted fireplace flickers thanks to an orange bulb hidden behind tissue paper. Cotton snow covers the stage floor in fluffy mounds that shed with every enthusiastic footstep. A child steps forward, delivering the opening line with the kind of earnest intensity that makes the entire audience lean in. Parents hold their breath, clutching programs rolled into tubes or creased from nervous handling. You watch as the story unfolds, guided not by strict narrative logic, but by the collective belief that holiday spirit thrives in slightly disorganized charm. A group of children performs a dance number meant to represent winter winds. They spin, collide gently, and correct themselves with tiny bows as though acknowledging gravity's personal vendetta against them. The audience applauds loudly after each spin, determined to affirm that every performance is exceptional. Teachers hover at the edges of the stage, gesturing instructions that the children interpret with varying degrees of accuracy. One signals for a reindeer to move left, only for the reindeer to interpret this as encouragement to wave vigorously at grandparents in the front row. Another cues a line, which emerges from the child with such unexpected volume that even the principal startles. The teachers smile through everything, their pride and exhaustion blending into a single unwavering expression. A choir of older students steps forward next, wearing sweaters in shades chosen to complement the set. Their music teachers stand off to the side, conducting with graceful sweeps that the students follow with admirable but inconsistent rhythm. The song rises, occasionally wavering, but always earnest. The audience sways gently, moved not by pitch-perfect harmony, but by the purity of children singing about peace, hope, and seasonal unity. You glance around and notice how seriously the adults take this event. Cameras flash, camcorders whir. Parents edge forward in their seats, eager to capture every second of their child's contribution. These performances become memories before the final note even fades, woven into the fabric of family stories and future holiday nostalgia. Back on stage, the grand finale approaches. A scene featuring the entire cast emerges with dusty snowflakes drifting from the rafters as a teacher pulls a rope with steady determination. Children beam under the snowfall, their faces glowing with pride, nerves, and a sense of accomplishment far larger than the stage. A small child dressed as a star stands in the center, blinking into the lights with an expression that suggests confusion, wonder, and possibly the urgent need for a snack. When the final bow arrives, it unfolds like a carefully orchestrated stampede. Children wave, parents cheer, and the teachers exhale the longest, deepest breaths they have taken all evening. Cotton snow scatters under the movement, settling into corners where it will undoubtedly remain until spring. As the audience rises, gathering coats and collecting flowers for their triumphant performers, you realize the true impact of these pageants. They reinforce not just holiday narratives, but expectations. They teach children the rituals of the season, songs to sing, stories to repeat, costumes to imagine, and values to celebrate. Through each uneven chorus, improvised gesture, and glitter-filled backdrop, the new holiday norms take shape. And as you walk out into the cold night, echoes of children's voices still drifting from the gymnasium, you understand that these humble productions do more than entertain. They pass the season from one generation to the next, wrapped in construction paper, guided by ambitious teachers, and powered by the sheer magic of earnest effort. You find yourself standing in the crisp winter evening outside a government building that looks as though it was designed by someone who believed marble could solve character flaws. Wreaths hang from every available surface, each arranged by aides who debated for hours over the symbolism of bow placement. The lawn is dominated by a towering evergreen imported from a forest that once held nobler ambitions. It now serves a higher purpose, at least according to the press release, which is to say it photographs well. Politicians begin to gather, stepping from polished cars with smiles that have been practiced in mirrors and focus groups alike, their coats fluttering as if stirred by the breeze of self-approval. You watch as staffers rush around them carrying clipboards, thermoses of hot chocolate that no one will actually drink, and boxes of ornaments chosen for their visual harmony rather than their cultural significance. The officials walk with a confidence that suggests they have never doubted their own importance, even when the polls politely encourage them to reconsider. They shake hands with constituents, while cameras follow every gesture. You notice how their greetings are delivered with warmth calibrated to the precise level recommended by their communications director, just sincere enough to appear genuine, but not so heartfelt that it risks wrinkling their suits. A senator steps forward to help place a shimmering ornament onto the lower branches of the enormous tree. You can see the weight of the ornament is negligible, yet the staffers treat the moment as if the senator is lifting a cornerstone of democracy. Photographers lean in, standing on tiptoe to capture the triumphant moment. The senator smiles upward, not at the ornament, but at the nearest camera lens, because in this peculiar ritual, the goal is not to decorate the tree, it is to decorate the narrative. Nearby, a governor practices her lines for the tree lighting ceremony. She rehearses phrases that promise unity, goodwill, and economic prosperity, each polished until it gleams brighter than the lights waiting to be switched on. Her aides nod approvingly, adjusting her scarf, her microphone, and her angle relative to the flattering spotlight. No one mentions the long meeting she avoided earlier, or the legislative gridlock looming in the new year. Tonight is about joy, or rather, the broadcast illusion of it. As the crowd gathers, the tree lighting begins. The officials stand shoulder to shoulder, united not by ideology, but by the irresistible gravitational pull of seasonal publicity. Children from a local choir sing carols with pure, unfiltered enthusiasm, their voices lifting into the cold air. The politicians sway along, some slightly off rhythm, but all wearing the same expression of benevolent participation. Their handlers hover just outside the camera's frame, mouthing reminders to look engaged. When the switch is thrown, the tree bursts into light. Thousands of bulbs glow with orchestrated brilliance, casting a warm halo over everyone present. The spectacle is met with applause, cheers, and a few gasps for good measure. The officials beam at the crowd, knowing the photographs taken at this exact moment will circulate in newsletters, newspapers, and campaign materials for months. It is a triumph of strategic festivity, a scene designed to suggest leadership through illumination. You watch the officials mingle afterward, shaking more hands, accepting cookies from community volunteers, and complimenting the decorations with a fluency that suggests they have practiced seasonal praise as part of political training. Beneath the scripted gestures, you sense the subtle exchange occurring. The crowd offers approval willingly, even eagerly, and the officials receive it as though it were a vote cast in advance. As the night winds down, the officials retreat to their waiting cars, still waving until the doors close. The tree remains lit behind them, steady and bright, standing alone in the winter chill long after the cameras vanish. You linger a moment, listening to the faint echo of carols and conversations drifting across the lawn. In this brief stillness, the tree seems less like a prop and more like a reminder of how deeply a holiday can be woven into the machinery of public image. You walk away with the impression that the season offers politicians something they rarely receive elsewhere: a chance to appear kind, approachable, and human, or at least close enough for the evening. You sit in a modest living room where the glow of a table lamp softens the edges of the evening. A family gathers around a low coffee table that serves as the quiet center of their world. The air smells faintly of pine from a tree that leans slightly to one side but refuses to be discouraged. The television murmurs softly in the background, narrating its own version of joy through jingles that have seeped into the wallpaper. You watch the family settle in with a stack of catalogs so thick they could double as building materials, each page promising a holiday far grander than the one currently unfolding around them. The parents flip through the glossy images, pausing over spreads that present impossibly perfect homes decorated with impossible ease. Trees sparkle with symmetrical ornaments. Stockings hang from mantles that appear to have been designed by people who have never encountered dust. Families in these images smile with a confidence that suggests they have never misplaced a gift or burned a batch of cookies. The parents study these pictures carefully, as though they contain instructions for a happiness that must be decoded. Their expressions shift between longing, amusement, and the tentative belief that with enough ribbon they might approximate at least one of these scenes. The children crowd closer, pointing at toys arranged on pages that gleam like treasure maps. They circle items with pencils, creating wish lists that grow longer as the pages turn. A toy train chugs across one page, captured in perfect motion by a photographer who likely never had to assemble it. A doll with an unwavering smile promises companionship as long as batteries are included. The children debate which toys are essential to their future fulfillment, unaware that the commercials they saw earlier have already nudged them toward these conclusions with cheerful determination. The television grows brighter, pulling their attention away from the catalogs. Commercials roll with the confidence of tiny theatrical productions. Snow falls in soft flakes, even though the scene was filmed in a studio. Families embrace. Children gasp theatrically when they open presents that glimmer like enchanted artifacts. A narrator assures viewers that happiness arrives in a box, preferably purchased before the weekend sale ends. The family watches with an intensity usually reserved for breaking news, mesmerized by the choreography of seasonal persuasion. You notice how their living room responds to all this influence. The decorations, once modest, suddenly appear incomplete. The mother studies the tree, tilting her head as if examining it for signs of underperformance. The father glances at the lights framing the window, wondering if they need an extra string, or perhaps two. Even the dog lifts its head, sensing the shift in seasonal ambition. The catalogs lie open on the table like invitations to a version of the holiday they have not yet fully mastered. Later, the parents retreat to the kitchen, whispering in low voices about budgets, sales, and whether the children might notice if a certain toy arrives in a slightly different color. They do not resent the pressure. They simply navigate it with the quiet determination of people who want to give their children the best pieces of a season that keeps raising the bar. You can see how the machine pulls them forward gently, promising joy if they simply follow along. Back in the living room, the children continue flipping pages, narrating their futures with earnest certainty. One imagines building a train empire beneath the tree. Another envisions hosting tea parties attended by plush animals with impeccable manners. Their dreams unfurl easily, shaped by the images in the catalogs and reinforced by the commercials now cycling through their third repetition. They are learning the language of the holiday, one advertisement at a time. When the parents return, they do not discourage these dreams. Instead, they smile and begin marking the pages together, turning the process into a ritual. The room feels warmer, not because of the advertisements, but because the family gathers in shared anticipation. They talk about traditions they want to keep, moments they hope to create, and the small joys that never make it into catalogs but linger in memory far longer. As the night deepens, the television clicks off, leaving only the soft glow of the tree. The catalogs remain on the table, their glossy images still whispering promises of ideal holidays. You watch the family settle into their own imperfect but heartfelt version of the season. They may never match the scenes printed on those pages, but they interpret joy in the way so many households do, by blending aspiration with affection, influence with intention, and commercial suggestion with genuine warmth. You sit with them as they drift toward sleep, understanding that this quiet family has been swept into the holiday machine, not through force, but through invitation. They accept the season's script while gently rewriting it in their own living room, learning to balance what they are shown with what they already hold dear. You step into a warehouse long before dawn, when the world outside is still heavy with sleep and the only light comes from fluorescent tubes that hum like tired bees. Inside, Rows of workers move through aisles stacked with crates of ornaments, garlands, bows, and items that sparkle with such cheer you momentarily forget each one was made by someone fighting off a yawn. The air smells faintly of cardboard, adhesive, and the kind of determination that forms only when deadlines loom large and the season waits for no one. You watch as a woman carefully attaches tiny bells to a string of garland. Her hands move quickly, guided by muscle memory built through thousands of repetitions. She hums softly, not because she feels festive, but because it helps her focus. The bells jingle with each movement, producing a cheerful sound that contrasts sharply with her concentrated expression. The garland promises joy to the households that will eventually hang it, even though the process of creating it leaves glitter clinging to her sleeves for days. Nearby, a team assembles artificial wreaths on a long work table. The workers fluff branches, add ribbons, and apply small pine cones with glue that emits a scent hinting at possible hazards. Each wreath looks identical to the last, yet each requires precise attention to ensure it meets the standards of holiday perfection. A supervisor checks the symmetry of every bow, adjusting angles with a ruler and an intensity suggesting he once dreamed of becoming an architect, but somehow ended up policing ribbon placement. In another corner, ornaments roll down a conveyor belt toward a station where workers attach hooks by hand. The belts move at a steady pace, smooth but relentless. You watch a man who has mastered the art of hooking ornaments with minimal wrist movement, attaching one after another until the rhythm becomes hypnotic. His face remains calm, though you sense he has long abandoned the illusion that holiday cheer naturally emerges from such repetitive work. Still, he takes pride in the smoothness of the process, knowing these ornaments will soon hang on trees across the country, reflecting light and laughter in households he will never see. Further down the line, employees pack fragile items into boxes lined with protective cushioning. They do this with the care of people handling dreams, knowing that customers receiving damaged decorations often feel personally insulted by the universe. Workers tape boxes shut with swift motions, stacking them onto pallets destined for stores that will display them under warm lighting, hiding the fingerprints of exhaustion that cling invisibly to every surface. You walk toward the break room, where workers gather during brief pauses in the rush. They sip coffee from paper cups and share stories about the season, some fond, some weary. A woman laughs as she describes trying to decorate her own tree after 10 hours of decorating for others, only to abandon the project halfway through. A man jokes that he now recognizes garland in his sleep. Their humor is gentle, built from shared effort and the unspoken understanding that the holidays do not happen magically. They are assembled, piece by piece, by hands tired but capable. Returning to the floor, you notice the constant ticking of the large clock hung over the entrance. Shipments must be prepared. Orders must be fulfilled. Retailers depend on this warehouse to produce the illusion that the holiday season floats effortlessly into place. Workers move faster as the day progresses, knowing that behind every smiling advertisement lies a logistical map filled with deadlines, checklists, and the quiet pressure of expectation. You pass a young man operating a machine that cuts decorative ribbons. He stacks them in neat piles as though assembling miniature flags of celebration. The machine occasionally sputters, requiring him to adjust it with the practiced patience of someone who has learned to speak its language. Each ribbon will eventually be tied into a bow adorning a gift presented with pride, even though the recipient will never imagine the blinking machine that shaped it, or the operator who coaxed it into cooperation. As your tour nears its end, you look back at the sea of movement. Workers lift, sort, glue, trim, tape, and check. Their actions create the visual language of the season long before the first snowfall or the first carol fills the air. They produce the wreaths that will hang on doors, the ornaments that will sparkle under lights, the garlands that will transform ordinary spaces into festive sanctuaries. And as you step outside into the cool air, leaving behind the drone of machinery and the scent of fresh cardboard, you understand something quietly profound. The holiday world so many people cherish is built by invisible effort, Every symbol of peace requires labor. Every image of effortless joy is shaped by hands working through long hours. Behind the scenes, the season is not serene. It is constructed by people who do not appear in commercials, yet carry the weight of making the holiday possible for everyone else. You sit at a kitchen table cluttered with magazines, catalogs, and the faint residue of a dinner recently cleared away. A family settles around you, armed with pencils, highlighters, and an enthusiasm usually reserved for sporting events. Tonight, they are participating in a new seasonal tradition spreading quietly across the country. It does not involve baking or caroling or decorating. It involves list-making, a ritual that transforms personal desire into something organized, strategic, and unexpectedly ceremonial. The youngest child begins by circling toys in a catalog with the confidence of someone selecting future companions. Each item earns a careful mark, and soon the page resembles a treasure map designed by someone who believes everything is treasure. The older sibling approaches the process differently, ranking items, weighing options, and making notes in the margins like a scholar analyzing ancient texts. Their seriousness contrasts sharply with the glittering images they study, yet it fits perfectly within this new order of holiday planning. Across the table, the mother drafts her own list with a mixture of practicality and hope. She writes down slippers, a new mixing bowl, and a novel she has seen advertised in glowing terms. Then, she hesitates, adding a small star beside one item, as if acknowledging to herself that it represents a desire more than a need. The father works methodically, creating a list that includes socks, tools, and a gadget he saw in a commercial that promised to improve his life in ways he did not realize he required. You watch the family compare notes, joking about the extravagance of certain wishes and the unlikely probabilities of others. The children barter for category space, negotiating whether toys count as separate from games or whether one particularly flashy item should be placed in its own elite tier. Their parents smile, amused by the negotiations, yet aware of how easily this ritual shapes expectations. The lists are not just suggestions. They are becoming frameworks for the season itself. On the radio, an advertisement encourages listeners to create their own holiday wish lists, promising that retailers have made the process easier than ever. Stores offer templates and brochures, some even printing branded versions designed to guide customers towards specific merchandise. You sense how seamlessly consumer culture blends into family tradition, transforming the simple act of wanting something into a curated exercise. You shift your attention to the father as he opens a new catalog filled with items that glisten under professional lighting. The captions promise joy, efficiency, comfort, and in some cases, personal transformation. The father sighs softly, perhaps recognizing the gap between glossy aspiration and practical reality. Yet he continues browsing, circling a few items with hopeful flourishes. This is the quiet seduction of the modern gift list. It offers the illusion of control over chaos, a way to shape the holiday into something manageable and pleasing. The mother folds her list neatly and places it in a drawer for safekeeping, as though it were a document of importance rather than a collection of seasonal preferences. The children race to the living room to rewrite their lists in cleaner handwriting, believing presentation influences success. You follow them briefly, watching as they produce new versions adorned with doodles and underlining. They treat the lists as miniature visions of the future, manifestations of delight waiting to be delivered. Later, you observe the parents reviewing the children's lists after bedtime. They whisper about budgets, availability, and the subtle art of choosing which items to purchase without revealing the underlying strategy. They scan the lists for clues about shifting interests, wondering which choices reflect deep longing and which are simply reactions to persuasive advertising. The lists simplify the process while complicating the meaning behind every item. As the night deepens, the family's lists rest in various drawers, notebooks, and envelopes. They become artifacts of desire, shaped by culture, commerce, and the soft push of tradition. In a few weeks, some items will be purchased, others abandoned, and new wishes will emerge as the season intensifies. Yet the act of writing them solidifies a ritual that extends beyond this single household. You realize you are watching the birth of a system. What begins as a tool to help families communicate becomes a method for retailers to forecast demand, for advertisers to target their messaging, and for entire communities to measure the success of a holiday. The modern gift list grows quietly, weaving itself into the structure of December. It promises clarity but also codifies expectation, offering joy framed within the boundaries of consumer ritual. And as you leave the kitchen table behind, you understand that these simple lists, created with pencils and laughter, will shape the holiday for generations. They turn longing into inventory, anticipation into planning, and the private act of wanting into a shared seasonal language. You stand on a crowded dock as crates stamped with cheerful red logos are loaded onto ships preparing to cross vast oceans. The workers move quickly, unaware that they are participating in a quiet cultural migration. Inside the crates lie ornaments, toy trains, tins of cookies, and strings of lights packed with such precision they could survive a storm. But nestled beside these objects is something less tangible: a holiday, a feeling, a carefully curated nostalgia waiting to be unpacked on distant shores. You watch the ship pull away from the coast, its hull carrying not only merchandise but the earliest seeds of an exported December. When you arrive overseas, everything feels familiar and unfamiliar at once. A storefront displays a Christmas tree decorated with enthusiasm that exceeds understanding. The ornaments shimmer under fluorescent lights, arranged by a shopkeeper who has only recently learned the significance of tinsel and believes that more is always better. Customers pause outside the window, drawn to the bright display even if they cannot yet name the feelings it evokes. They lean closer, entranced by a holiday that has arrived fully formed, as if someone delivered a tradition in a box marked "some assembly required." In a nearby theater, a holiday film flickers across the screen. The audience watches as snowdrifts swirl around couples who discover love beside fireplaces that glow suspiciously steadily. Children laugh at animated characters who embark on festive adventures involving improbable heroics and moral lessons delivered with warm sincerity. You notice the soft amazement on their faces. The season is new here, yet familiar in the way stories can make anything feel like memory. People leave the theater humming songs they heard for the first time but somehow already know. You wander through a marketplace where vendors have begun selling imported decorations. The items appear slightly surreal in this setting. Plastic reindeer stand proudly beside baskets of spices. Strings of lights tangle gently around crates of produce. Artificial wreaths hang above stalls selling grilled street food. The effect is jarring but oddly charming, as if the holiday is testing how well it can stretch across climates, languages, and long-standing traditions. Shoppers examine the goods with curiosity, weighing novelty against desire, affordability against fascination. In a cafe, radio speakers play crooners singing about snow that has never fallen here. The customers do not mind. They tap their fingers to the rhythm, absorbing the mood even if the imagery does not match their weather. A young couple sits at a corner table, sharing a dessert dusted with powdered sugar to resemble frost. They speak softly, wondering whether they should buy a tree this year, whether their parents will understand, whether it is possible to celebrate something whose origins lie many miles away. As you travel farther, you witness how quickly the holiday adapts. In one city, decorations appear along palm-lined boulevards, their bright lights shimmering against humid air. In another, street vendors craft ornaments using local materials, transforming the imported concept into something uniquely theirs. A festival emerges around the idea of giving, merging traditional customs with the newly introduced rituals. Children decorate paper stars, adults exchange small gifts, and musicians blend local sounds with melodies borrowed from American holiday music. You watch a culture stretching gently to welcome a visitor that insists on staying. You notice, too, how corporations nurture the expansion. Billboards advertise seasonal promotions that pair familiar logos with newly adopted imagery. International brands release limited edition packaging decorated with snowflakes, even in regions where snow exists only in stories. Commercials air on television, featuring narrators who explain the holiday with a tone that suggests both knowledge and discovery. The advertisements speak of warmth, unity, and joy, though they always conclude by encouraging viewers to express those sentiments through strategic purchases. Yet beneath the marketing push, something genuine begins to unfold. You see families gathering to celebrate in ways that blend newfound customs with old traditions. Some exchange gifts beside trees, others share large meals, and many simply take the opportunity to pause and reflect at the end of the year. The holiday, once imported, begins to localize. It grows roots in soil that did not ask for it but willingly embraces it. You sense that the season is shifting shape, becoming a patchwork stitched from global threads. As you travel between continents, you notice the subtle feedback loop forming. What was once exported begins returning in modified forms. Decorations handcrafted overseas appear in American stores. Films created abroad find new audiences in the country that seeded the phenomenon. Songs circulate in multiple languages, each version adding texture to the expanding universe of holiday nostalgia. Christmas, once tightly bound to a particular place and culture, begins to exist everywhere, belonging simultaneously to everyone and no one. You pause at a bustling market square lit with lanterns and electric lights intertwined in patterns that defy any single origin. Children laugh beside a towering tree that leans slightly, not from age, but from enthusiastic assembly. Adults sip warm drinks while listening to a choir that blends traditional carols with melodies older than the holiday itself. And as you stand in the middle of this beautifully mismatched celebration, you understand that the season has crossed oceans, not merely through product or advertising, but through its ability to offer comfort in shapes people can adapt. It has become a traveler, spreading nostalgia where nostalgia did not previously exist, teaching joy in a language everyone can learn. You arrive in a town square filled with lanterns that glow like small suns, each one swaying gently in the evening breeze. The air carries a mixture of scents that do not normally cohabitate. Roasting chestnuts mingle with spiced tea, grilled corn, and something sweet wrapped in leaves whose aroma you cannot quite name. Children weave through the crowd holding decorations made from local plants, their colors bright and wonderfully uneven. The scene feels festive, but not in the way you expect. It feels like watching two worlds meet politely in the middle and decide they enjoy each other's company. You step closer to a booth where artisans display ornaments crafted from materials found within walking distance of the market. There are carved wooden animals dusted with glitter, woven stars that still carry the scent of sun, dried straw, and small figurines painted with symbols passed through generations. None of these objects appear in glossy catalogs, yet each seems perfectly suited for the season. You listen as a vendor explains to a curious shopper how these pieces draw from local folklore, how each design represents something meaningful long before the arrival of imported tinsel. Nearby, a choir begins to sing, their voices rising in harmonies shaped not by cold winters but by warm evenings and wide open plazas. The melody resembles a carol, yet twists into patterns that sound entirely new. Drums join in, followed by hand-played instruments whose tones ripple across the square like gentle waves. People gather to listen, some swaying, some laughing, all welcoming this seasonal hybrid with the ease of those who know that tradition is a living thing, happiest when allowed to grow. You follow a family carrying baskets filled with food prepared for a holiday meal that looks nothing like the dinners depicted in exported films. There is no roasted bird, no mashed potatoes, no bowls of cranberry, anything. Instead, the baskets hold dishes wrapped in fragrant leaves, soups simmering with local spices, and a dessert shaped like a star but unmistakably unique. The family walks proudly, chatting about the special ingredients, remembering stories of ancestors who used these recipes long before anyone here had heard English lyrics drifting from radios. A group of elders sits around a circular table, telling stories that stretch back through centuries. Tonight, they blend old tales with new customs, explaining how local spirits coexist with the imported idea of a generous figure in a red suit. The elders laugh as they debate whether this figure would prefer a gift of sweet rice cakes or roasted nuts, deciding that any visitor who travels across the world can adapt to new snacks. Children listen wide-eyed, absorbing a version of the holiday that belongs entirely to this community. You notice decorations strung above the square, combining familiar shapes with patterns inspired by traditional festivals. Stars crafted from paper glow beside lanterns painted in hues that hold cultural meaning. Garlands made from native plants intertwine with strings of lights that blink softly. The effect is neither wholly American nor wholly local. It is a conversation in color and texture, a visual reminder that traditions do not remain static when they travel. They stretch, bend, and sometimes discover new beauty in unfamiliar surroundings. As night deepens, dancers gather in the center of the square. Their costumes shimmer under lantern light, embroidered with motifs that reflect both seasonal themes and heritage. The dance begins slowly, each movement deliberate, grounded, then the rhythm shifts, gaining energy, inviting onlookers to join. Tourists mimic the steps with good-natured awkwardness. Children spin too fast. Elders clap in time. The dance becomes a celebration of belonging that embraces everyone, whether they grew up with this holiday or found it later. You drift toward the edge of the square, where a small altar displays offerings meant to honor ancestors alongside symbols adopted from Christmas. Candles flicker beside carved wooden icons. A bowl of fruit sits next to a handmade ornament painted in bright reds and greens. It is a scene shaped by affection rather than rules, built from the belief that honoring the past and celebrating the present do not have to conflict. Later, fireworks burst into the sky, painting the night with colors rarely associated with winter celebrations. People cheer, not because the display matches a catalog image, but because it expresses their joy in a language they have always understood. The holiday here does not mimic an imported script. It borrows, blends, and reinvents until the result feels organic, heartfelt, and unmistakably theirs. As you walk through the square one last time, you feel the subtle transformation taking place. The holiday has been welcomed, translated, and reshaped. It no longer belongs solely to the country that exported it. It belongs equally to the people celebrating it now, infused with their stories, flavors, rhythms, and customs. It has become something familiar yet entirely new, proving that traditions, like people, thrive when given room to breathe. You sit in the back row of a small lecture hall, the kind where wooden chairs creak with every shift, and the chalkboard at the front bears faint ghost marks from debates long past. Outside, the world glows with early winter lights, but inside, the atmosphere is sharper, more skeptical. A group of writers, professors, and cultural critics gathers at a long table, their expressions thoughtful, their cups filled with lukewarm coffee rather than cheer. They have assembled to question the holiday machine, to ask whether the season's shining exterior reflects something genuine or simply blinds people to what lies beneath. A critic opens the discussion by tapping a pencil against the table. He speaks slowly, choosing his words like ornaments meant to hang in just the right place. He describes how storefronts now explode with decorations before autumn has finished settling in, how jingles appear in commercials formatted with such strategic precision that viewers barely notice the persuasive undertone. The audience murmurs in agreement, the sound rising like the rustle of dry leaves. He wonders aloud when joy became something measured in sales figures, and whether anyone can truly feel nostalgia that has been prepackaged 6 months in advance. Another thinker joins in, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of someone accustomed to challenging assumptions. She traces the evolution of holiday advertising, projecting images onto a screen. There are billboards drenched in glitter, magazine covers airbrushed to impossible serenity, and commercials that promise unity through carefully staged smiles. She points out that these images never show the messy, unphotogenic reality of the season, the parts filled with fatigue, imperfections, and moments that cannot be framed neatly. The audience laughs softly, recognizing themselves in those unscripted corners. As the discussion continues, a writer raises the question of authenticity. He argues that celebration should be organic, unpredictable, and imperfect. Yet everything surrounding the modern holiday seems engineered to produce identical feelings in millions of households. He gestures toward a stack of catalogs on the table, their pages filled with curated scenes of joy, each composition designed to trigger longing. He asks whether people truly desire these images or have learned to desire them through repetition. The room grows quiet, holding the weight of the question. A young scholar challenges the group, suggesting that resistance might not be as simple as turning away from the glitter. People find comfort in predictable rituals, she argues. They enjoy decorations that shimmer the same way year after year. Perhaps commercialization does not erase meaning, but rather amplifies a longing already present. She leans back, folding her arms, inviting debate with a half smile. The critics respond eagerly, exploring the tension between joy experienced and joy marketed, between tradition cherished and tradition manufactured. You watch opinions ricochet across the room like ornaments rolling across a hardwood floor. Some argue that the season has become an elaborate performance where every symbol, from the tree topper to the gingerbread house, carries a subtle branding. Others contend that people reshape the season in private, carving personal meaning from the spectacle, regardless of corporate intent. A poet on the panel describes the holiday as a stained glass window, beautiful from a distance, but complicated upon closer inspection. The metaphor hangs in the air, tinted with equal parts wonder and unease. During a brief pause, someone in the audience asks whether the critics themselves might be missing the point. Perhaps joy survives commercialization because it lives in moments that cannot be choreographed. In the unexpected laughter at a dinner table, in the lopsided gift wrapped by a child, in the quiet pause before lights are switched on for the night. The panel considers this, their brows softening as though remembering something they had temporarily set aside for the sake of argument. Yet even as they acknowledge the resilience of joy, they return to their concern that the holiday has been inflated like a balloon stretched thin. They worry that the season now encourages comparison rather than contentment, that families measure their celebrations against images created by professionals with budgets far beyond reach. One critic jokes that no real living room looks like a magazine spread unless someone has forcibly removed the messy realities of ordinary life. The audience chuckles, sensing the truth tucked inside the humor. As the event winds down, the speakers gather their notes, their arguments lingering in the room like the echo of a carol sung off-key but with conviction. You step outside into the night, where the air smells faintly of evergreen and distant chimney smoke. Lights twinkle across rooftops, unapologetically bright, utterly indifferent to the critiques voiced inside. People walk past you carrying bags filled with gifts, their faces a mix of anticipation and mild exhaustion. And as you watch them move through the illuminated street, you realize the critics are not trying to extinguish the season. They are simply holding it up to the light, examining it for cracks, inviting others to consider whether joy has been overshadowed by spectacle. They question not to destroy, but to remind people that beneath the glitter lies something worth protecting. You walk on, feeling the duality settle around you, the tension between unfiltered delight and the shimmering billboard version of it. And you understand that the season, like any tradition, is always a negotiation between meaning and marketing, between what is offered and what is chosen. You walk through a neighborhood illuminated long before the calendar suggests it is time, as though the houses have grown impatient and decided to light themselves out of sheer habit. Strings of bulbs flicker on porches where no one remembers exactly when they were first hung. A lawn inflates a plastic snowman with a cheerful whir that continues even after its owner forgets to turn the switch. You sense something shifting beneath the glow. The holiday no longer waits for anyone to declare its arrival. It simply begins, propelled by momentum gathered over decades of rehearsed anticipation. Inside a nearby home, a family opens a box labeled decorations with handwriting so faded it might as well be a historical artifact. They know exactly what is inside before lifting the lid. The same ornaments wrapped in newspaper, the same wreath flattened slightly by time. the same lights that will inevitably contain one bulb causing trouble. They move through the motions without hesitation, each gesture guided by muscle memory. No one questions who decided these items symbolize joy. They simply are joy now, grandfathered in through repetition. On the radio, a familiar song plays for the 100th time this week, and yet no one seems bothered. People hum along automatically, as though the melody is woven into their neural pathways. The station barely needs a holiday countdown anymore. The tunes appear on their own, slipping into playlists, like migrating birds, returning to a place they never chose but somehow depend on. Even the advertisements have adopted a seasonal tone without waiting for official instruction. The holiday machine hums quietly, lubricated by habit. You visit a shopping center where garlands hang overhead, arranged by employees who could decorate these corridors blindfolded. The stores sell items they ordered months earlier because data told them they would. Customers pick up the same scented candles, the same boxed cookie sets, the same cozy slippers produced in endless supply. They do not question why these products define the season. Tradition has merged with marketing so seamlessly that repetition feels like authenticity. The machine does not need innovation. It needs only memory. In homes across town, parents wrap gifts while children write lists without realizing the ritual predated their births. Everyone participates willingly, not because they were convinced, but because the seasonal choreography feels as natural as breathing. Families place stockings in the exact same spots they occupied last year. They bake cookies using recipes that circulate like folklore. Even arguments about which movie to watch follow predictable arcs. These patterns repeat not out of obligation, but because they anchor the holiday in a comforting sameness. You walk past a classroom where children cut paper snowflakes, each one slightly lopsided yet treasured. They sing songs passed down through school pageants that predate the teachers themselves. Their drawings feature symbols they did not invent, but have absorbed through sheer exposure. No committee needs to choose the iconography anymore. The season teaches itself. Children learn its shape before they learn its history. In offices, co-workers whisper about secret gift exchanges, their voices dropping to the same conspiratorial tones heard every year. Mugs reappear with seasonal slogans, some chipped from decades of use. A box of peppermint candies sits on a desk, refilled endlessly by no one in particular. The holiday drifts through the workplace like a pleasant draft, settling into corners without any conscious introduction. Even critics who push back against the glitter find themselves participating despite themselves. They purchase gifts for nieces, attend gatherings, hum along to songs they claim to resent. Their resistance becomes part of the ecosystem, another predictable role within the larger cycle. The machine accommodates dissent the way a forest accommodates wind, bending slightly, but continuing to grow. You begin to see how deeply the repetition has etched itself into culture. The holiday sustains itself not through invention, but through inertia. Each generation inherits rituals without receiving a manual, and yet they perform them flawlessly. The season has become a self-replenishing reservoir. People decorate because they decorated last year. They bake because their parents baked. They watch the same movies because those movies have become landmarks in the calendar, glowing signposts that guide them back to familiar emotional ground. As you wander through the calm of a winter night, you sense the hum of 1,000 small traditions unfolding behind closed doors. Laughter drifting from living rooms, trees glowing in windows, cards arriving in mailboxes. None of this requires invention anymore. The machine has learned to run on memory, nostalgia, and the quiet desire for continuity. You pause beneath a streetlight as snow begins to fall in soft, unhurried flakes. For a moment, the world feels suspended between motion and stillness, and you understand that the season endures not because it reinvents itself, but because people return to it willingly, repeating gestures that have become anchors in time. The holiday breathes through them, sustained by the simple, powerful act of doing what has always been done. You stand on a hill overlooking a city where neon signs blink through winter fog, casting color across streets that never truly sleep. Below you, A crowd moves with the rhythm of a place that has folded the holiday into its everyday pulse. Towers shimmer with lights running in coordinated patterns, each building competing politely with its neighbor. Even the traffic hums with a softened undertone, as if the season has persuaded the city to momentarily relax its usual urgency. From up here, everything glows as if wrapped in a warm electrical embrace. And yet, when you narrow your focus, you sense something larger, something stretching far beyond this skyline. You shift your view to a distant countryside where a small village gathers in a candlelit square. The decorations are simpler, shaped from local materials and arranged with steady hands rather than manufacturing precision. Children carry lanterns. You suspect they made themselves, their faces lit from below by flickering flames. A chorus sings in a language unfamiliar to your ears, though the melody drifts with a tenderness that needs no translation. Here, the holiday breathes differently, moving with gentler rhythm, yet unmistakably recognizable. You realize that these two scenes, though separated by continents, share the same genetic thread of a season born decades earlier in a world eager to innovate its joy. You begin to trace the path backward, connecting the bright, sprawling celebrations of today to the smaller ambitions of the 1950s. You picture marketers brainstorming jingles in modest offices, unaware that their work will echo across oceans long after their coffee cups have cooled. You remember factories churning out ornaments with metallic shine, not knowing they were crafting pieces that would someday hang in homes from snowy towns to sun-drenched coasts. You recall how families adopted television specials that traveled further than any one producer dared imagine. None of these creators set out to build a global ecosystem. They simply wanted to shape a season. Yet here you stand, witnessing the result of choices multiplied by time. You travel mentally across continents, where the holiday has adapted itself with surprising courtesy. In one place, palm trees shimmer beneath strands of lights that sway in warm evening air. In another, markets serve sweetbreads scented with spices entirely absent from American kitchens, yet eaten with the same giddy anticipation. In yet another, towering department stores install displays so elaborate they resemble small, temporary kingdoms. Everywhere you go, you see pieces of the 1950s peeking through. The crooners' voices may now be remixed, the advertisements translated, the decorations customized to local taste, but the structure remains unmistakable. What fascinates you most is how seamlessly the holiday migrates through environments that never resembled the snowy suburbs where the modern version first thrived. A bustling megacity installs digital snowfall on giant screens. A rural community pairs its ancestral winter festival with borrowed symbols, allowing both to coexist without conflict. A small island town paints holiday murals on fishing boats, blending maritime tradition with imported cheer. The ecosystem expands not by replacing what exists, but by weaving itself into the spaces between. You watch as global commerce reinforces these connections. Cargo ships carry ornaments across seas. Streaming platforms deliver holiday movies to phones glowing in crowded buses. Advertising campaigns leap between markets with only slight adjustments, ensuring the same spirit reaches corners of the world that once operated on entirely different calendars. The machine no longer depends on any single nation. It thrives on exchange, imitation, and the human desire for warmth at the darkest point of the year. Yet you also see how individuals reclaim the season. A grandmother in one country tells stories that fuse local folklore with imported narratives. A child in another region draws holiday scenes featuring both reindeer and animals native to their homeland. A group of friends invents traditions that merge music, food, and rituals drawn from multiple cultures. The ecosystem is global, but its expression remains personal. People take what resonates, release what does not, and reshape the rest until it fits comfortably within their lives. Standing on that hill, you sense the immensity of it all. A single decade's experimentation has grown into a sprawling, interconnected network of celebration that spans hemispheres and languages. The holiday has become a universal shorthand for warmth, generosity, and temporary suspension of the everyday grind. Even where snow never falls, people create their own version of winter's magic. Even where customs differ wildly, the glow of shared festivity bridges the distance. And as you take in the city lights, the village lanterns, the distant echoes of carols transformed by time and translation, you understand that the holiday no longer belongs to the place where it was engineered. It belongs to the world now, carried across borders by products, stories, and the simple human yearning for a moment of wonder. You stand in your living room on a quiet December evening, surrounded by decorations you did not consciously choose but somehow always expected to be there. The lights glow with a familiarity that feels inherited rather than selected. The tree stands proudly in the corner, dressed in ornaments that span decades, some shiny and new, others chipped or faded but protected with the devotion normally reserved for heirlooms. You look around and realize every detail carries the fingerprints of a past you never lived, a decade whose inventions still thread through your present like shimmering wire. Outside, your neighborhood sparkles with synchronized determination. Houses compete gently, not out of rivalry, but out of ritual. One home boasts a glowing reindeer on the lawn. Another strings lights along the roofline with impressive geometric accuracy. A few residents embrace extravagance, creating displays that illuminate the night sky as if summoning planes from distant runways. Children press their faces to windows as parents drive through the streets, performing a yearly pilgrimage of admiration. No one questions why they do this. It simply feels right, as automatic as breathing when the air turns cold. Inside your home, holiday music drifts from a speaker, cycling through songs whose earliest recordings predate nearly everyone now humming along. You hear the soft croon of voices that once sang into microphones warmed by vacuum tubes. Yet they play through modern devices with such ease that you forget how old the melodies truly are. These songs have crossed generations, formats, devices, continents, and still return like migrating birds, faithful to their seasonal cue. You feel their presence like a familiar comfort, even though none of their creators imagined they would become the soundtrack to lives so far removed from their own. You scroll through a streaming service, passing dozens of holiday films with plots that echo the formulas perfected in the 1950s. Romance blooms beside small-town wreaths. Families resolve misunderstandings under falling snow. Animated heroes rediscover the meaning of the season with musical assistance. You choose one almost randomly, knowing they blend together in predictable sweetness. But that predictability is part of the appeal. The world may shift beneath your feet, but these stories remain steady, offering reassurance disguised as entertainment. In your kitchen, familiar scents rise from recipes printed on cards that look as though they have survived multiple eras. You prepare dishes your grandparents learned from magazines that once dictated how a proper holiday should look, taste, and smell. You measure spices, stir batters, and check ovens with the same gestures performed in countless mid-century kitchens. The tools may be new, the counters different, the pace faster, but the essence remains. You are reenacting choreography written long before you were born. Later, you unwrap gifts purchased from stores that still follow the promotional calendar established generations ago. The packaging, the campaigns, the jingles, the rush of last-minute shopping, all of it follows rhythms born from the era when Christmas transformed from a quiet domestic holiday into a bright commercial universe. Even the lists children write echo those early decades, when parents first began consulting catalogs with the seriousness of scholars interpreting ancient texts. You pause and imagine stepping backward through time. You picture the 1950s with its booming optimism, newly built suburbs, glowing department stores, and commercials designed to gently guide families towards seasonal consumption. You picture the marketers, the factory workers, the magazine editors, the crooners in recording studios, the toy producers, the set designers, all contributing threads to a tapestry they never saw completed. They did not know they were constructing a global holiday engine. They simply believed they were shaping their moment. And yet their moment never ended. It simply expanded. You look around your home again and see their influence everywhere. In the ornaments shaped like atomic age geometry, in the wreaths fashioned with familiar artificial greenery, in the lights that still mimic the early fascination with electric glow, in the rituals repeated so often they feel ancient, though they were engineered within living memory. The holiday around you is not just a tradition, it is a cultural invention that matured into myth, and you feel something surprising, a mix of wonder and humility, because even as you recognize the machinery behind the magic does not dim. You know the season is built on decades of design, marketing, and repetition, but you also know that somewhere in the middle of all that structure lies something tender and human. Joy passed down, warmth recreated, memory built from patterns. You stand in the soft light of your decorated home, listening to a song older than your parents, staring at ornaments older than you, surrounded by customs older than either, and you understand that you are living inside an echo, a glittering resonance from a decade long gone. Yet it fits you perfectly, like a tune you never learned but somehow know by heart.